Yeah,
Yeah,
this is my wife, Allie,
Allie.
over here.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Allie. So this is like this is a family show tonight. Doing the
My dog's hanging out here too.
yeah, yeah, right on. Mine will come in and gank me at some point. My other two dogs don't give a crap when I go live. Like my corgi, she actually hates being around me when I'm on my computer. She like if I'm not at my
Yeah.
computer, she'll like she's just a ball of floof that won't leave me alone. But whenever I'm at the computer, she's like, nah, I'm not going over there. Which
Hey,
is
I'm gonna ask you a question that might not. Are you allowed to swear?
yeah,
Oh,
you
You
can
know,
swear
like
on
this.
my yeah, you can swear on my
I
shit.
just want.
Yeah, but she's yeah, she just like won't she won't whenever like I don't know operant conditioning what it is or if she just like has in 13 or 14 years of me ignoring her for the screen given up, but like when I'm streaming people want to see the corgi. I'm like damn it Mochi. SCW Soren showing up, dropping a tier 3 sub for 32 years of support, says good evening from Texas and good evening to Texas. How's it going, Soren? How's he's got actually, as I recall, been painting some Curse City for the Rantathon coming up here July 30th and July 31st, and I just got the third fully painted army for that. So
ooh.
that's Crix. I'll be sharing photos probably tonight or tomorrow of the whole army, but it's the Crix ganked by daughter. How's it going, sweetie?
Will you help me get my
Oh,
gummies and pills?
I thought you were supposed to be in bed.
I can't, because I can't get my gummies and
You
pills.
can't get your gummies and pills. You're gonna have to go wake mommy up, sweetie.
Mom is sleeping.
Okay,
good dog.
excuse me. Good thing I was about to do the intro and then I didn't yet do the intro. I have to go help her.
I would have awkwardly sat here after you introduced me. It's
Yeah,
okay.
I'll just introduce you and then you see.
I'll handle
The
cat gang. It's
the
fine.
show isn't really started, chat gang. So feel free to like really put TJ through the ringer. Checking, blowing up all up in here. See, you don't need me. You got this. You know. So we cooked dinner, ate dinner. Everything was on schedule today, and we turned on the what is that Turning Red or whatever.
Oh, it's a great movie.
The panda, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was on like kind of pre-dinner. Turned it off, to eat dinner, and then like played around, and then like it was about time to get ready to go to bed, and they're like, "Oh, we got to finish our movie." Look at it. I'm like, "Okay, there's a half an hour left," and that half an hour turned into an hour and a half so quickly. Like, kids, they're just like they're like time lords. They're like fucking TARDISes or something, like stashed in their bedrooms.
I mean, that's part of the reason I had to, like, when you asked me to be on, like, suggest the later start than what you originally told me is because, like, we try to start bedtime anywhere between 7:30,
Uh,
and regardless of how tired our kid is, it will sometimes take until 9 o'clock for him to finally, like, we will be laying in his room in the dark, like the peacefulest of movies that will just zonk him out on, and he will still just like just not go to sleep. Yeah, my wife said like he's allergic to it.
it's what is it with kids? Okay, like I am an insomniac, so I understand not sleeping, but it's not because I don't want to sleep. Like, I would love to be able to sleep. What the hell is with children not wanting to sleep? Like
I don't
it's
know.
just do it
Well, so
now, and then you get older, and then you're not allowed to sleep. Like do it now. Ugh.
with Truman, I think it's 100%. He has ADHD,
Yeah.
so like I think he just like he. We've always called him our little Ariel. He wants to be where the people are,
Yeah.
and right, like he just
Yeah.
so. But in general, yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I
No.
think even if you didn't have that, it would probably be a challenge.
Well, I mean, I'm fairly certain Colin does. Colin has ADHD as well, and my daughter, it's difficult to tell right now because she's just very she is very much herself. She is,
Yeah.
like she knows who the hell she is and what the fuck she wants all the time. But Colin, he's got a lot of my behavioral patterns, and we know that
Yeah.
there's a genetic component to it. And I'm like, well, if I got diagnosed with severe ADHD, like we better check.
Well, yeah, we've chatted about that a little bit where like I like between various like TikTok things, seeing things, and just talking with people, especially once I joined your community and everything like that. Like I
Yeah.
is something I've wondered about, and I've touched briefly with my therapist about it and everything.
Yeah.
But now knowing that he has it as well, I'm like
Better get
kind of the
checked.
flip.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well my kid has it, and I have all these.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And
do I have it?
right, and the media does a horrible job. I know, newsflash.
Yeah.
But like,
But the media is great. They never
by
do anything wrong.
by media I mean like film media and like the things that we get like kind of our markers from for looking for some of this stuff. There hasn't been like I don't think I've seen a single since I've been aware of it my own ADHD. I don't think I've seen a single accurate representation of actual ADHD in
Oh no, yeah.
any film related any media. It's just like
Well, I mean,
I go ahead.
no, it was very similar like autism for the longest time. It isn't until the last probably 4 or 5 years that we've seen probably actual accurate depictions of what an autistic person is
Right.
like.
Yeah. Everyone thought it
And
was Rain Man, right? That's autism.
yeah,
It's like no, like yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's we shouldn't be surprised that media gets stuff wrong, but it's still you feel like kind of like a fool because you grow up with these stereotypes and like you're looking for the like just yelling and can't sit in there staring like not just like how I bounce my knee and just like swivel my chair a little bit. Like you're not looking for something like that. You're looking for these like big, overt stuff. You're looking for like
yeah,
behavioral problems and shouting down the teacher and you
yeah.
know.
And with ADHD, it's behavioral stuff, and also like the whole plastic bag thing, right? Like
Mm,
the
mhm.
the, the easily distracted aspect
Yeah,
of it as
I
well.
mean,
It's like
yeah.
that
So
I've like
yeah, you've got the inattentive. I've got I've got combined type, which is there's some like old vernacular still rolling around now. ADD isn't really used so much anymore. It's just
mhm,
ADHD. And even now they're like, well, it's not so much like what does it say? Like attention deficit disorder. It's more of like a regulatory disorder, not so much a
yeah,
deficit, because like you think deficit, and then that like undermines the fact that we do get hyperfixation. So folks with
yeah,
ADHD or people who have undiagnosed ADHD, they're like, no, I can like I crush it. I just learned everything. I'm gonna keep using this joke forever. Checking, you know what's coming here. I just learned everything about animorphs. Like of course I could focus. Like I just spent 7 hours reading 3 different Wikipedias on Animorphs and watching 3 different YouTube channels, like big full rundowns of the whole Animorph series. Of course, I can focus. Or like the time I learned, like I had one question about like knots when I was writing a book, and I'm like, well, I've got this question about knots. Like, well, what was this kind of knot? Like this character would know what that knot is, and so I have well, that character's like they would know what the knot is. So I like have to like research knots, and then suddenly I'm just 6 hours later, I'm like, ask me anything about any rope that's ever been tied. Like I know everything. It's
yeah,
and you're like, and you don't know that hyperfixation is an ADHD thing, and you have it's the internet, right? We all fall down like internet black holes from time to time, but it's
yeah. But
the
I think that there's a difference between going down a rabbit hole, right, and just because you're scrolling at the end of the night or something, and like not being able to stop,
in
right?
the and that's exactly what it is. It's you're not capable of it. Like uh Mars might be in chat here. Sorry about that, by the way. Um, Mar Mars and I were having a conversation. I couldn't leave my phone. Like every time I would set it down, I had to grab it to see what the next because I had to talk. I had to finish the conversation, and as long as that conversation wasn't finished to like my mind's satisfaction, I couldn't focus on fucking anything for that whole
Yeah,
day. Like it was, I lost an entire day to like one
I mean that's
history
what a
discussion.
lot of rant film is, right? Like is just all of us just not stopping anything, right? Like
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so it's so I'll do the intro real quick. How's it going, chat gang? I am, of course, the magical Mr. Mephisto, the most dangerous man in Age of Sigmar. I am your loquacious Lich King, guiding you through all the adjacencies of Warhammer. This is episode 126. We're going to be talking about Indy Storm, and I am joined by the TO of Indy Storm out of, I'd imagine, Indianapolis.
Yeah.
TJ, how's it going, TJ?
It's good. It's really good.
Good. But
I'm still hilariously riding the high from the event a little bit because of how well it went.
That's great. That'll keep it fresh in your mind. But before we talk about Age of Sigmar, let's just keep going on ADHD. I think this is a decent conversation. No, it's so you look at that like this conversation, you just can't get off of it. And by now my ADHD meds have completely worn off. They last about 6 hours, and I take 2 doses a day. So I take one when I get up in the morning, and I take one basically right after lunch, if I remember to take that second one, because it turns out all the things that you need to do to like sort of compensate and be better when you have ADHD are the exact things ADHD makes you bad at. So it's interesting learning about myself and sort of recontextualizing my life, because I got like 3 diagnoses. Well, there was like an anxiety thing in there too, but it wasn't like an official anxiety. It's just, you tested really high for anxiety, but it's comorbid with, these other things. So it's not like, I have anxiety, but it's a comorbidity, not so much its own thing. See, ADHD brain. That's how you talk. You got to explain everything before I can explain one thing. I call it bonus content now. Every thought I have comes with bonus content. I'm going to stop internalizing my own hatred. Like you get these you have this like internalized or sort of like self-ableist crap that you learn that stuff almost before you learn you have ADHD. So by the time you turn, you're in your 30s and you're getting diagnosed, you're like, oh yeah, like I'm just lazy, and you start to believe stuff like that, and it's, I'm trying to not say such like sort of self-ableist crap like that anymore. So one of my promises to myself was to stop calling myself lazy. Although I'm very lazy, I really don't want to do anything.
Are you lazy, or do you have lazy moments?
I have I indulge my
a lot of work.
Like I indulge but I work a shit ton.
I'll indulge chat gang here a little bit, and like I'll dote on you a little bit. Like, you put a shit ton of work in, so we all appreciate you and love it. So
it's true. It's never and that's the ADHD. Like, I'm never putting the work in, sometimes where I need to. It's wherever the dopamine takes me, basically. Like, my brain's like, I'm gonna go here now, and I found out that the bee is like the symbol for ADHD, which is super appropriate. If anyone knows, one of my dreams is to retire and become a beekeeper. So, yeah. So like drinking caffeine isn't a way to solve ADHD, just a form of self-medication. Correct, Omir. Correct. Yeah, what was I saying? It was ADHD, internalization. So all my thoughts come with bonus content now. That's how I'm going to refer to it now. I'm not, I don't talk too much. I don't rant. Well, I rant. We're, calling this RantCast was sort of like beating people to the punch. You talk too much. Well, of course I talk too much. Fucking show's called RantCast. Shut up. Like I've already, so it was preempting it. But now we're gonna start like when I start to feel self-conscious about talking too much. It's just that all my thoughts come with bonus content for free. You're welcome, everybody. So yeah, ADHD. It's weird to have missed it because I'm so much of it all the time. And what got us here was there's the inattentive, and there is the hyperactive. So you have the sort of two sides of it. It's kind of like a spectrum. And many folks with ADHD, like, they're actually on the inattentive side of things, and so like they're still struggling with that fact that like our brain essentially has like 4 lanes, and everyone else's brains are like they have several just on and off ramps everywhere for their brains. Like they have. And we just have like the little 4 lanes, and we can never really like get anything extra. Like we're always, if one of these lanes, we can't multitask. But they'll have all the sort of inhibiting factors of what is sort of the more outward expressions of ADHD. They have all the hyperactivity, like it's the same brain chemistry basically, but they won't have those outward indicators like me swiveling my chair here or bouncing my knee, they won't have that hyperactive indicator. So like they go undiagnosed even longer just because they're on the inattentive side of it. That's the you set your wallet down and it just fucking disappears, man. Like fucking gone forever.
I don't think it's ADHD related, but I legitimately lost a car key somewhere in my house this week.
Oh yeah,
And my house is admittedly a disaster, but
yeah,
I'm still like, how do I lose a car key?
yeah. Well, I was watching Thought Slime video a while ago, and Thought Slime was really the one that that was where I'm like Molly was watching it with me, and she's like you gonna talk to that therapist now? I'm like, oh, fuck, I gotta, because it was the Thought Slime video was like surprise I have ADHD, I think is what it was called, and it was just they went through their whole like day experience, and it wasn't just like where you see these TikTok videos or you see like a Facebook like viral meme or something like that where they're saying something that's kind of vague and anyone could get like self-conscious of it. It was very specifically my experience every moment of every day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I better fucking talk to somebody. I was more trying to add to what you were saying and failed. Oh, you're fine. No, you're fine. Like the how much I love coffee. That's been self-cope or self-medication essentially. I'm like, yeah, coffee's great, but it doesn't really do anything. It was like, it does. It gives you a little bit more operational memory, which is the one thing. But like, I lose stuff all the time. My house is chaos. But anyway, they did Thought Some did a follow-up one, and this is like the fucking coolest thing I've ever seen. Where you can read Spider-Man, as an allegory for ADHD.
Yeah.
And
I'll have to watch it.
it's a sweet video. Yeah, I mean, Thought Slime in that does the sort of adjacent thing the way that I tend to do with Warhammer, where they're talking about Spider-Man, but they're not real. Like it's just a springboard to say something about ADHD. But at the end of the video, they go into this like big life affirming bit where like, no, you have superpowers. ADHD is your superpower. And I'm like, fuck yeah, it is. So I've come full circle now. For those of y'all who've watched RantCast for a while, I sort of started my journey with this about in lockdown where I started like, do I have ADHD? And then it very slowly went through to like the end of last year. Where I'm like, at that point, I'm pretty certain I've got it, and I just haven't talked to somebody yet. And then finally diagnosed end of December, beginning of January. And I'm like, I finally like fully embraced the ADHD now at this point. There was like self-deprecation phases where I was self-conscious of it. I was beginning to shut down talking, like I'm mental health visibility guy, right? Like that's fucking raised close to $20,000 for mental health, hoping to raise, well, I'm gonna aim high. I'm hoping to raise 15,000 this year. I don't want to do like an infinite growth thing, but if I raise 15,404, I get to fight Ulf Paints for real, in armor and shit, and that's what I'm. So my agenda, it is for me. It is it's fuck helping people with mental health. Who gives a shit about that? I want to fight dude in armor. So I'm being selfish here. So 15,404.
You promised to film it, right?
Yeah.
People will donate just for that.
We'll do a fight. That's right. He's gonna give me a katana or some shit. Like I don't know. Like he's gonna whoop my ass because he's like 6'8". He is the mountain that paints. Like, really good anxiety reduction too. I'd imagine. So like mental health visibility and stuff like that. But I found myself shutting down talking about ADHD. I just was getting more and more insecure around people, like physically in my presence, where I'm like, normal, no problem, saying, but noticing people like pull away from me when I'm like, oh, that's just my ADHD. And they're like, and I see this response and I'm like, I thought we were fucking past this,
Yeah.
Like talking about having a bad mental health day is like, like most people are like, okay, like some people kind of are dismissive of it, but it felt like that was becoming acceptable around people in my personal life. But when I actually said, like, well, it's just my ADHD, or I need to go take my, second med, they're just like, he's on medication. It was just like,
He does drugs to make his brain go the right way. What?
Yeah, it was so weird. And so now I've come full circle. I've embraced the ADHD, and I've been working on now coping and processing the bipolar, which has been fun. I just recognized that I was in a manic phase all last week. That sort of capstone of was feeling utterly invincible and getting into a fist fight with somebody, and then I'm like, oh yeah, mania. And I'm like, yeah, that happened. All those times I just like blow up on someone on Twitter or something like that. And I'm just like, I feel invincible and like nothing can stop me, and I want to destroy I can take on the world. That's become the indicator that I'm in a mania phase. I know I'm in a depression phase now too. But
I learned recently, like I've only had the 2 sessions, right? But like with my therapist, like because we've talked about it, that's some of our first conversations about mental health is like my anger stuff.
yeah,
And like my therapist is like, well, yeah, but anger's not really anger; it's something else that then becomes that. So anger
yes,
is like a byproduct. And I was like, oh, cool. This thing that I've basically identified my whole life around
yeah,
is
yeah.
something else that's bothering me.
Well,
Cool.
yeah. The thing and I'm sorry, Chucky. We will get to Indy Storm here, but I wouldn't be much of a mental health streamer if I didn't talk about some mental health stuff, right? Um, the the bipolar was something I was like I'm like I don't have bipolar. I'm not bipolar. My mom's bipolar. Look at her. She's crazy. I'm not crazy, and so like I knew I was depressed, and so I became very familiar with like my depression. And like I could tell when I was getting depressed and when I was entering
Yeah.
a cycle of depression, stuff like that. But I thought that when I wasn't depressed, I was normal. That was me, and I didn't think about mania whatsoever. And basically, ever since the bipolar diagnosis came through, I was like, I've had to like think about that too, because some of the ADHD like hyperfixation can seem very similar to mania, like where I suddenly buy a bunch of action figures. Um, let's call them dolls. Where I suddenly buy a bunch of wrestling dolls.
I want to buy that
Um,
doll.
I bought a bunch of wrestling dolls. I just got it in my head. Was that hyperfixation or a mania phase? Because mania, the recklessness of mania, the hypomania, just making bad decisions, the impulsivity. ADHD's got some impulsivity issues too, which is it?
Yeah,
And
it's
so I've
certainly
been
not a great combo.
no, it's terrible. They're like tag team champions of the world. When my hyperfixation and impulsivity of ADHD like teams up with my mania phase, they just like fucking throw me up on the shoulders, fucking Legion of Doom style and Doomsday device, and I'm just out. There's nothing I can do. Like it sucks.
You wake
Uh,
up and all of a sudden you have like someone's cheese action figure collection you bought with
yeah.
a square that resembles
Okay. So we're not
90
going to
Vecna
talk
or
about
something,
how I
right?
bought all of Tom Lyon's TMNT collection. I don't. We're not going to talk about that very real thing that actually happened. Uh,
You want the reverse of that? I
what?
sold literally every toy I had from my childhood
Yeah.
because like I'm never gonna do anything with these, and like I'm not gonna have a kid or anything like that. And then like literally almost to the day, like 2 months later, it's like, oh, I'm having a kid. Well, cool. I can't share that part of my childhood with him now
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because I wanted space and a quick buck.
Well, I mean, that's why I grabbed the TN. That's why I tell myself I bought the TMNT stuff, but so that my children can play with the toys that I was playing with growing up, and they can experience like what TMNT was in my time. But it's been like a year, and they've been sitting in a box right over there in front of my CRT TV
Yeah,
speed
I've
running.
learned from our Lego phase that I'm that dad.
Mm-hmm.
I want Truman to have all these toys and things like that, but like my wife's had to like give me very like, hey, don't type cocks because like that's not for playing. Like he loves the idea of Funko Pop, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
always telling like, well, we're not getting you Funko Pops because those aren't toys. You're not supposed to play with them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then with Legos, I was like, no, buddy, that's not how it's supposed to be put. And she's like, they're literally things that are supposed to be put together however you want. And I'm like, but like there are instructions and you need to put it together and then not smash it. And
Yeah.
I'm the dad from the Lego movie,
That's.
and I never realized it.
Oh my gosh, you're Will Ferrell. Yeah, big
Yeah.
business, right? Yeah, that's funny. Hotspur dropping a tier 1 sub for 24 years of support. Thank you so much for that. And Ulf Pants dropped 1,000 RDP. Hotspur dropped 1,000 RDP earlier to remind everyone the chat gang ain't none to mess with. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's so now I feel like I've embraced my ADHD. I'm like this is me. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Now I'm making like they're not even self-deprecating jokes anymore. They're like the way I make my unabashed jokes about like Nagash and stuff like that. It's that same type of like where like I've fully taken ownership of it. All the stuff that you'd say is bad about it is exactly why I like it. You know, it's so, and now I'm on that sort of journey with my bipolar now, and we'll get to the CPTSD later. I'm told that that's just like you just own that. Like, you have fucking trauma upon trauma. If you were in the military, you would be considered disabled. Like, you just have fun with that, fucker. But the bipolar has been like, it's been interesting because, like I said, I always noticed my depression. I never noticed the manic, and then I've had to now these last few months, and then I've been able to go back in time and see every single like mania phase like through, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's been there the whole time. That fearlessness, that recklessness that I feel, that's the hypomania. That's the it's so crazy because I was saying the exact words when I have two therapists, one that prescribey therapist and talkie therapist, and they're both psychiatrists. You know, they can both prescribe, but I don't know if it's a health insurance reason why you have to have someone separate prescribing you, but basically I get that. And the one therapist, when I'm like talking about my depression cycle, I talk about this like whole cycle and so, and I'm like, oh, it goes like this, and she's like, Andrew, you just described bipolar, and I'm like, nuh-uh, I have depression. But yep. I actually had a great therapy session on Monday with my talkie therapist, which is where for 4, and this is the moral of the story. This is where I was going with this, everybody. For 4, 5, 6 sessions now, I think, with talkie therapist, because there's a spell there where it was once every 2 weeks, and now we're up to once a month. I was like, I don't like her. We're not ever talking about anything important. We're not ever talking about my mental health. Like, the one day she just like talked about she had me talking about work. And I'm like, oh, fuck work. Yeah, I can talk to anybody about work. It was just like, it was just, one of those like, I was just like indignant, just being, well, me, my stubborn self. And just for 6 sessions, just like, I think I'm going to switch therapists because all the folks I like and listen to about therapy say like, well, you got to find the right medication and the right therapist, and so on and so forth. And on Monday, I realized she was the right therapist because I started talking about how I noticed I had a mania phase all last week, and she's like, well, how'd you know? And she just, like, it was one of those moments where, like, when you're playing Warhammer and you just like, and you realize how owned you're about to be in one single movement phase.
Yeah.
But you, like, that whole time you're like, I fucking own this. Like, I'm controlling this game top to bottom. I've got this. And then they're like, did you screen your back objective? And you're like, why would I screen my back objective? And you look over off to the table, the shit they put in Deep Strike, and you're like, oh, fuck.
Yep.
Like one of those. And they baited you off the objective too by putting like some tasty like monster to get smashed over here. Like the whole.
Yeah, earn this bonus victory point. It's fine. That'll give you the win.
Yeah. You're doing math in your head. You think you've got this shit. And she did that to me. For just 6, I believe this was the 6th session. So 6 sessions of like just, well, talk about your day at work. Here's a useless piece of advice about keeping a journal. Like, just like these little things were really nothing of substance. Nothing I wanted to talk about. We never talked about my ADHD. We never talked about, like, I'm like, I need coping mechanisms for my ADHD. Help me out here. I'm losing my damn mind. And I stumbled upon, like, sort of talking about manic depression on accident, as my brain is wont to do, the bonus content, right? And she just sort of like subtly nudged me, and then as she was like subtly nudging me through the conversation, or coaxing me, through it, she was actually giving me feedback on like what was happening with me then, and like, well, that's. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure if it was hypomania, I think is what she called it. She's like, well, that's where your hypomania is peaking out. That's that invulnerability feeling you get. That's pretty classic hypomania. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, that all makes sense. And I had realized that she was the chess master. The first thing I said to her when I was like, before she's even technically my therapist yet, was I was terrified of my mom's bipolar. I was terrified of her, and she was bipolar, and I don't think I've got it. I'm just depressed. And so she knew, like, every therapy session, how scared I was to talk about bipolar. And she just kind of let it come out. And then once it was out, she helped me deal with it. And it was like, okay, all right. Like, I see you, like, over here with, like, the fucking 4D chess moves while I'm still playing 3D chess. Like,
Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting from my therapist. Like, it's only been the 2 sessions, but like, she does so much like talking and explaining and telling me about like different symptoms or things where, and then like will just barrage me with a bunch of questions that in the moment either don't make sense or feel like aggressively pointed at me. um, but it just like I've had so many in 2 sessions, like,
yeah.
oh yeah, yep, there's that. Like
Yeah.
you're like all the I feel called out memes, right? Like
Yeah.
nonstop. But she does it in a way that just doesn't feel like I'm being bowled over, even
Yeah.
though it's like very pointed.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's been great. Like
Yeah.
who knew, right?
Well,
Talking about the things is good, and
well, the statistics of men going back to their second session is very low. I wonder if that has anything to do with some sort of like toxic masculinity or
oh no,
patriarchy.
no, men aren't toxic. We have muscles, and like we're great at everything.
Some sort of like you're only allowed to have one emotion and it's anger, or you're only allowed to express one emotion and it's anger, and if you have any other feelings, like how dare you? No, it's no, it was the first session for me. It wasn't like a real session. It was the like, well, why are you here type thing. Like I fucking
Yeah,
broke down in the office. I had it was like I was like running a marathon and I saw the finish line type thing and I just like kind of collapsed and like crawled. That was like the feeling I had. It's like I barely crawled it like to the finish line of making it to help because I was spent. I had
yeah.
been spent.
The best way I was able to describe, because like I was like not that bad, like I didn't break down with anything, but like I felt so worn out
Hmm.
after an hour and like 10 minutes of just telling this person about my problems, what I think my problems are, and her kind of just trying to dissect a little bit about my past.
Hmm.
I pulled a Lord of the Rings quote, right? I was like honestly, like it's the Bilbo thing. Like I feel like I am too little butter spread
Spread
across
over to
way too much bread.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I got home and like I had a good laugh with my wife about it and everything. Like I legitimately felt really good, but like I just sagged into the couch and was just like, huh.
hmm
And then like 2 hours later, it was time to go get the kids from school, and I was like, I don't know if I want to move.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I just want to go to sleep. Like that's an option, right? I can just
yeah, yeah. It
sleep
is.
for like 48 hours and
If you got somebody to back you or whatever, Molly, my partner, she has been phenomenal. She hits me with like the TikTok ADHD memes, try to like understand and figure it out and stuff, and now we're like I said, we're on to like now it's time to process this bipolar business because I've been afraid of it, quite frankly. Me,
if you grew up with it, right? Like you have every reason to.
Yeah, yeah. So the point I really wanted to make is, it's hard to get help and think help, and a lot of folks who have started listening to me, and like when we've had these conversations, I've had conversations with other folks in chat gang where they're like, you're starting to sound a lot like my experience, and I think I might have ADHD. Well, that's how it started for me. But you gotta talk to somebody or you're not gonna know. The internet is dog shit for helping you diagnose yourself. Like you can be very good, very smart, but without actually there was this point in time where I went in and I'm like, well, what if she says I don't have ADHD? And like I just like I have been, like psychosomatically like priming myself to think this for this long time. And
Yeah,
like there's professionals out there they know, and therapy is hard, but if you need it, you need it, and you shouldn't feel ashamed. You should.
I've always joked, but you now, especially that I'm in it, like I think it's a lot like service industry jobs. Everyone should do it at least once. It's not going to be anything but good for you.
Well,
Like,
twice. You wanna
right?
you wanna go back that second time. The first time is the first time is sparring. You're just sparring with a therapist. They're not really throwing the punches yet. It's gonna It's going to feel like they are. It's going to be alienating. It's going to feel weird. Your guard's going to come down. You're going to realize that like you signed up for a boxing match and they're doing jujitsu moves and shit, and you're not. It's going to be weird, but they're still just sparring. You got to go back that second time. And if you're trying to get better and you have something that's really been on your back or something that's been haunting you, you got to go back that second or third time. And yeah, finding the right therapist and stuff like that, that's an ongoing process, but you can't tap out just after one side. You don't know yet. So I'm happy I didn't fire Abrams prior to getting to where we got to. But what you don't know is you can actually ask your therapist that it's not working out with for referral to a different one, because you're going to have like a network or a group. Because
My therapist suggested it to me. She told me right at the gate, she's like, if we get 3 or 4 sessions into this and you're not vibing with me on this, like,
yeah.
I've got an entire team of people I work
Yep.
with. Like, we can find you somebody. It's like, and if somebody in my office isn't working,
Yeah.
like, I will find you another office to go to. And I was like, oh, well, okay, thanks.
Apparently saying you keep using sports metaphors and I don't understand them, you may as well be speaking
Nick
gets you
and
fired.
I did have a very long conversation about that. He got into about like the first 40 seconds of describing to me, and I was like, that's not a therapist for you, buddy.
See, I use sports metaphors on accident, and I for a while there I got really ashamed of using sports metaphors to talk to fucking nerds. But I use sports metaphors all the time, and then I read some Twitter post or something that just got in my head, and it's like, don't use sports metaphors. They're not as universal as you think. And I felt horrible, so I stopped using them for a while. The one thing I am being active about is not using war metaphors. I know we're about to talk Warhammer, but I was in the trenches yesterday. Like, stop trying to not use war metaphors, like because I think that they're a little disingenuous to people who have actually been through trauma,
I mean,
and I think that it also sort of what's the word for it? Sort of dehumanize us a little bit. Like I think it can desensitize. I think is the word I'm looking for. It can be a little desensitizing to constantly use like to use war metaphors and stuff. So that's
I've tried to get away about like mental health stuff too, like right, like the idea very similar to how like growing up, right? Oh, that's gay, that's gay. Like I've like, oh, that offends people. Let's not use that.
Yeah.
Like the whole, oh man, I'm so OCD about like these things. Like, no, I'm just stuck up about certain things, and they have to be done a certain way.
Yeah.
Like I've tried to really, and it slips out every now, but I've tried to wean using terms like that because like I don't have OCD, and there are people that do, and it fucks their life, right? Like I shouldn't be saying that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we're always. I mean, that's the thing. You're always trying to be a little bit better than you were.
Avoid all the
right?
microaggressions you can avoid, right?
Right.
Because
100%. Yeah, and folks out there that might be the type of you'd be surprised how many people have a lot more patience for you just trying to be better than the so-called woke skulled snowflakes world thinks is littering it. You just had like 8 years of some of the most obnoxious humans on the planet constantly mocking you. Like, of course you're gonna be like a little pissed off, but like most people are chill, especially in reality when you're working through some shit. Fun fact: chat gang anxiety can create OCD style rituals. Interesting. I didn't know about that. We'll have to check with the Shadow Council if such a thing exists. But now let's turn the page. Unless there's anything you wanna close on or anything you wanna say before we finish off. Mental health charity marathon, the Rantathon 3, a link to the rants benefiting Take This org is July 30th, 31st. Ulf, third and final fully painted army arrived today, so I'll be sharing photos of that. Tell your friends, tell everyone to come support a great cause. You might win some swag or something sweet.
I'll probably be donating a box set or two again this year.
Yeah. I think Soren's painting another Curse City box, which is great because they re-announced Curse City. Cubic Shenanigans are throwing in a new inbox. The grand prize will be another new inbox.
There's a really good chance a Curse City, a non-painted, like a sealed Curse City might show up because I got our initial like reorder in, and then I got an invoice this week saying I have more coming for some reason. So
Fantastic.
if Games Workshop isn't going to take those back,
Fantastic. Yeah.
I'll probably send one your way.
Awesome. I'll take it. Yeah. So we'll do that. I think we've got I think we're doing one of the Thondia boxes. I think we got one of those. We've got a bunch of Pro Painted Studio gift cards again because those are just so awesome. Such great prizes. Van's coming back. She's got some shirts and aprons now. So if you want your own Vince Venturella apron, she'll make one.
I'll type up the Fondia box. I've got the Kron spine actually assembled. My wife is going to grab it for me.
Oh, that's fantastic. Circle City, see if Circle City Lasers.
You're
I know.
fine. He's going to fall over with it.
I know if Anthony Pol Castro is going to do another table of terrain. So, a lot of really great prizes that you could potentially win. That's rad.
Here's the model that everyone is freaking out about.
My brain, I'm not sure if I've got an email sitting in my drafts right now to send to Ministomp to order a Thondia box for myself, and it's been sitting there since it was announced. And one night I'm just gonna get like way too drunk and order it and like send the email, and I'm like, oh no, now I bugged Ministomp. Now I have to give him money. You know, it was gonna.
I'll be honest, cracking open the box there again. If you don't have like a ton of terrain that is suitable for Age of Sigmar, or you just want to expand it, right? Like I get a lot of people have lots of stuff. Like the terrain in it is really solid. Like the new wave of terrain they've been releasing with 3.0, like that aesthetic and everything. They're all really cool kits. Mm-hmm. I recognize a lot of people don't need more terrain though. So,
well, I mean that's the thing is like I do want more terrain. This summer I'm probably going to be building a Warhammer table for the office here. So I need more. I need it. I need it. I need it.
Spine.
What was that?
Like I wanted the box just for the giant like skull and spine like.
Yeah. Well,
like,
and
8 or 9 of those.
See, I want it because I said that Games Workshop should release more terrain, and then I fell asleep, and the Tyler Durden thing happened again, where I woke up as James Workshop, and I called it, and like, okay, release the box. I'm like, well, now I said they should release more terrain. What kind of a asshole would I be if I didn't buy the more terrain that I asked for and they release? You know? Yeah. Oh man. Oh. What a time to be alive. So talk to me about Indy Storms. Hard pivot there for mental health and stuff like that. Watch Rantathon, July 30th, 31st. But hard pivot from there. To Indy Storm. So what is Indy Storm? You're obviously the TO. Kind of
2020. Yeah, so 2020, like all through 2019, I worked with a lot of various event organizers, TOs, and like champions of games in the Indy area, because a couple of guys that I'm friends with from the 40K scene and the War Machine scene wanted to make a convention that was like very similar to Adepticon. Like, here's another convention that's kind of exclusive to miniature games was the idea.
Indianapolis is a great convention city too.
And so they rolled with it. I put a lot of them in contact with each other, and it like honestly that they've only had one actual like con, right, because COVID, but the first one, like, it was incredible. I forget the stats on how many people, but they had a huge Kings of War tournament, a massive 40K event. Mike, I believe, Megaboss Mike in chat, like I believe he ran an Age of Sigmar event that went very well. I ran a pretty successful Legends of the Five Rings card game tournament. There was multiple Malifaux events, the War Machine event, like it was massive. And they ended up having a game library, some laser tag, and because one of the guys who wanted to start the thing professionally like does laser tag stuff, and then like RPGs, and then they got some vendors from like various web stores and stuff like that. Like it turned into this thing that like even they thought was going to be, we'll have like obviously a massive 40K event, but then 40 or 50 people from a couple of these other games, and that'll be our thing. If it gets to be like Adepticon someday, cool, but like we don't ever expect that. And it blew up and was well received, went really well, and like then COVID happened, and so all through that first year of COVID, like nobody's allowing events to happen, things like that. And basically, once stuff kind of opened up a little bit more, where they could start running like even smaller events more safely, they started doing what they called storm cells.
I like it.
The idea is like, we can't give you guys a con anymore, but we're gonna just sprinkle events as often as we can for all the various games. So like,
like
yeah,
that.
Indy Storm's normally only one 40K event, but we're gonna have a couple. And them as an organization, they've really pulled it together to give this awesome, from various different games, whatever experiences, things like that. And like, obviously, some of the events do better than others. Like the War Machine guys are very passionate, but that as a whole, that community, especially with COVID stuff still going on, like it has definitely lulled. They just had an event actually last weekend at my shop though, and I think they had 32 people, which is kind of max I can fit. But honestly, in my opinion, in today's day, 32 people at a War Machine event is actually pretty good.
I'd say 30 at AOS is good. So
Yeah, the fact we sold out. So initially, I had our Indy Storm right set for 30 because I didn't want to like stretch the capacity of my game space at the shop I work at, and it sold out in like 12 hours or something like that. Like it was overnight, right? Like tickets went live like 8 p.m. and then at like 4 a.m. or something, one of the guys texted me saying, "Oh, hey, it's sold out." And I was like, "Oh, cool. I need to like first thing in the morning, I need to send out tweets about wait lists. Like this is how you can get on the wait list and stuff." And I had a wait list of like 9 or 10 names, so like I had 40 people out the gates in less than 24 hours who were like, "Yeah, AOS event that we know nothing about from a person who's never done a thing. Let's do it." And so
it's the power of
it was
AOS.
super cool, and it was like felt real good. And like Mike, he's run Circle C, like he's run a bunch of events like that. So like I've had him to lean on a lot with preparation and just talking about various things, plus other guys in my local community.
Yeah,
But
Mike is an exceptionally
Megaboss
high
Mike.
yeah,
He
sporadic
runs.
Mike on Twitter. He is an exceptionally high caliber person.
Yeah.
If anyone who wants to talk shit about Adepticon, you have to come directly to me first, and I will literally go hyper vigilant, CPTSD mode. I will channel my mania state, become invulnerable, and beat the living shit out of you.
I mean, I had to talk to you a little bit. I was one of Mike's flunkies, and so like out of respect for him, right? Like I didn't want to charge drama anymore. Like it was very, especially those first couple weeks, to like just look at Twitter and just go, "Yep, nope,
tap."
okay."
Yeah, like tapping out. Yeah,
Like,
no, I mean, I've said my piece.
yep.
I was very vocal about defending Mike on Twitter. I was very vocal about supporting Emma too, because I understand feeling like you have the rug pulled out from under. I get it, but that's the thing that bothered me, is people sort of taking pot shots or using tragedy to like fuck. I just don't like. That's just ugly.
Yeah, and then eventually turning it into this. It's like the one like I have, hands down. Like I've been playing games since I'm gonna be 34. I've been playing games since I was like 11. I've been playing D&D since 10, but like I followed my older brother into Warhammer at like age 11.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, I'm gonna hold on to the back of your shirt, and
Yeah.
like this is the thing I can try and do with you, right? And it's like I've played every miniature game under the sun, competitively, not competitively, massive communities for them. Age of Sigmar is hands down has been one of the best experiences, and like I get part of that is definitely how my life has changed and like where my priorities are, but like the community across the board, locally and like, has been awesome.
Right.
And like I've heard people like Nick and some of my local guys joke about like, oh hey, Midwest, not Midwest,
yeah, Midwest
Iron
Fortress,
Curtain, like,
let's
all that
go.
nonsense.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
oh,
Like,
it can't be that bad.
yeah.
And then the Adepticon Fallout was the first time I really got to see it. And it makes zero sense to me.
I think part of it was because there wasn't a major North America tournament for 2 years, basically. So I think that people had a lot of angst building up, a lot of comorbidities, a little therapy term to throw at folks, to misuse a pop psychology term, as is the trend with pop psychology. You just misuse them. Don't worry, they don't have any real proper meaning.
They're big words. Most people aren't.
No one gives a fuck. I think that there was a lot of baggage, just co-compiling baggage over a number of things. Like you have some folks who have legitimate beef with individuals. You have, you have some people who are angsty about this or that, and it just, I wonder. I can't help but wonder if we hadn't been locked down, would it have blown up so bad? And I'd make an educated hypothesis here that now it's going to be difficult to test this hypothesis, but I hypothesize that it wouldn't have been as bad. I think a
Yeah, I mean,
lot
'cause
of
there would have been a lot less emotions riding on it from
right,
everybody involved, right?
right,
Because it would, like, Adepticon's cool and huge and everything, right? But it would have just been another big event,
right,
opposed to the first thing we've been able to do in 2 years at this scale. Like,
right, and
you're right. I mean, that's 100%. A lot of it probably was people
oh,
just being charged on that alone,
right.
and
That'll
then people who didn't get to go, right?
right,
Like,
and you're feeling like you're missing out, and FOMO is a bastard of an emotion, right? Like
it's
it
my
is
biggest
just
enemy.
what was that?
It's my biggest enemy.
Yeah.
I was there running the event, having the time of my life. Like, legitimately one of the best times I've ever had at a convention.
Uh-huh.
But like, I went up to Nick, Mike, any of the guys there, like, especially once the singles event started, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
every hour or so. Oh man, I wish I was playing though.
Yeah.
This is way better than I thought it was gonna be. I wish I was playing. Like,
Yeah. Well, I
if
mean,
I could have just got my stuff in and I could have played, right? Like just
yeah,
constantly during the whole event.
yeah. Trillion-dollar ad firms don't focus on FOMO marketing because it's a weak, not meaningless emotion. But there's, you know, I don't want to say FOMO is all bad. Maybe there's a good use for it. You know, maybe there's some
I mean, it's a
camaraderie.
motivator,
It could be a motivator. Okay,
for sure.
motivator. Yeah, so there's
And
got
not
to be a
always a bad
positive.
motivator, right? Like,
There's
FOMO gets a lot of people out to socialize, I feel, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. So I mean, it's like I mean that's to talk about like co-opting pop culture terms. Parasocial relationship isn't negative or positive.
yeah,
A parasocial relationship can
it's
be
just the
used
rules we've all
negatively.
agreed to live
Like for instance, if I tell you to watch Rantathon July 30th and 31st because you're my friend, chat gang, and all my friends should support me and go. That would that's hope the
when you were taking care of stuff, I told them all, now that I'm on here, they have to come across the board, no matter where they are in the country, come to my next event. So like,
right, right.
they're jerks if they don't, right? Because this is my first time doing
Right.
this.
Yeah. So
So
parasocial is neither negative or positive. I'm sure FOMO is one of those things where like we're so used to it being negative that we're just like we've ascribed it a negative connotation. But there's like you said that it can be a motivator. But the one I did get, and I when everyone was blowing up when it first happened, I felt like I had to kind of just hold the line and like. And like the bridges are burning, and I'm the fucking idiot like holding the strings on both sides of the bridge, like no, you get across, no, you come back, and like and trying to like because I do have friends all over the literal fucking world, and people I respect, adore, quite frankly love, who love playing Warhammer a little bit different from me, and trying to be like, hey, this isn't the thing we should, this isn't where we should burn the bridge type thing, like this is,
yeah,
and just trying to like, defend, my friends who I knew were running the event, within the best of their ability
I'm
under
putting everything in.
some bullshit constraints too, and
Right.
there
I
were
was just there to answer judge questions and help with some logistical stuff, right?
yeah,
Like, the amount of work that went into those events from the head guys, like,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
a point where, like, don't shit on them just because of that, right?
Yeah, well, and then
Like,
that's the thing as well. If you're the 200-person tournament, there should be a higher, there should be more professionalism. Like more professional in a fucking minis game. Like what the like?
yeah,
Do you know like? And if I don't know, like so there's like yeah, there are things that were legitimate criticisms, and where I was going with one of these is like the transparency is just like an obvious slam dunk. I said immediately. As when it got really viral and bad, then that's where I have to like hold off on my criticism of the thing because I'm not going to throw in with the noise of people who aren't being charitable.
yeah. I mean, when I DM'd you about, like, one, thanking you for standing up, and then also like my feelings on the whole thing, that was when you were kind of starting to
Well,
rein it in a little bit, because you even said to me, like, there's a point where I'm just going to be arguing with people
yep. I'm like I
out of
can't.
the argument.
Yeah, like I'm like I can't. Like at some point, like you just kind of got to like I'm just gonna be dogpiling with whatever's going on, and no sense is gonna be made of anything. So I kind of like, I kind of rein it in, and I just decided to hold the line instead of talking or aggressing or anything like that. But we've had some time and distance, and so I've been able to like dust off like the paragraphs of critique I've had for my friends to make
Yeah,
next year even better, and now that everyone's in a better mind space, and I don't seem like I'm one of these douchebags who's piling on in a bad time over a tragedy. Like, but one of the ones was like Sean Benson on Twitter, fantastic hobbyist, formerly U.S. Is now an Australian. I don't fault him. He's living his best life down there. But opening up his Twitter to try to like connect and see Adepticon stuff going on, and how like he felt like alienated, and like he's used to actually going to Adepticon. I think he said he went every year since like 1998 until he like left the country type thing. I'm like, like that's a that's like my record with Gen Con is about that, like 98. That's
Since it came to Indy, I've not missed one.
Yeah,
Right?
I've missed a few since they left Milwaukee. Is kind of how it goes for me. But it's they the fact that I can compliment Indy as a great convention town, even though I should have some bad blood over leaving Milwaukee, shows how great an objective paragon of analysis I am. By the way, I can suspend my own. No, actually, Milwaukee treated Adepticon or treated Gen Con like shit. I love Milwaukee. I love that city.
Like I would love to say that it was our glitz and glamour that brought them here, right? But we just happened to throw out the right price after they had got shit on. And,
but Milwaukee, the city, was like, what the fucking nerds? Like, and I have reasons why Milwaukee had issues, because dealing with just how bad Milwaukee has had it as a city from fucking geopolitics and shit like that, like. But no, like it ends up in Indy, and I remember the first Indy Indy Gen Con I went to. I'm like, wow, this city actually likes Gen Con. Like looking around, like fucking people.
Well, yeah. So the secret about Indy, and it's probably like I went to school for event management and things. It's like I worked.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
I didn't finish. I had a kid.
But no, that's fine. No,
I
it's
worked
so cool.
in that industry a lot, right? So I worked with the hotels a ton, and even at the convention and everything. Like Indy, I couldn't tell you how long ago it happened, right? But like Future Farmers America, firefighter convention, like firefighters conventions, Black Expo, right? Like, there are, even without Gen Con, there were 3 to 5 big national conventions, that they built themselves to cater to.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's
the restaurants that are in Indy aren't there because Indy wanted cool, right? Like St. Elmo's isn't there because Indy wanted St. Elmo, like a thing like St. Elmo's, so they like, right? Like, no, it's there because like they knew 4 or 5 times a year, people with a lot of money in their pockets are going to come here,
right?
And
but you mean like the city decided, like, hey, like just free tourism, not free obviously, but
our city's real big and round. Let's just fill as many things in those multiple circles as we can, and make all the money.
Yeah, no, it's great. No, and Milwaukee now, if you Amkey is a lot better, and like there's some, like, there've been some homegrown conventions that Milwaukee has started now that are really solid. But in the 90s, well, I mean, Milwaukee, like I said, a lot of shit going on in Milwaukee. So, no, but no, what I was getting at is the that something in the scope of Adepticon and stuff like that, and one thing I really did vibe with was that emotion. Once it was time to like let the ropes relax, the bridges are no longer burning, once I didn't have to have my heels dug in, I could start talking to humans again as humans. One thing that really resonated with me was Sean mentioning how he just wanted to like open up Twitter and like feel like he was connected to Adepticon again, like he was back in the day. And I'm like, I fucking get that. Like I get that immensely. When I first got into Warhammer, I remember not knowing where to go or where to look to see a tournament happening, because I'm just sitting there stuck at home, with a newborn, just like wanting to see Warhammer happen, and I get that feeling. So there's some stuff that I promise will be better for Adepticon for next year.
I mean, before, that's kind of how I got to. I initially, when I bought my Age of Sigmar stuff that I started with, it was just supposed to be a hobby project.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got Archeon because I played Chaos and Fantasy, right? And so I got Archeon and a couple start collecting. The idea of I'm just gonna paint these guys, try and paint them better than I've ever painted anything.
Just gonna paint.
Well, I legitimately like. We didn't sell a ton of Age of Sigmar at the time. Like we sold some, right? But we didn't sell a ton of it. Right. And like I never saw people play it, so like I just assumed that it was this game that like I'm sure people play it somewhere, but it's hanging on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was running a Blood Bowl league, and a buddy from
Games Workshop's actual best game, Blood Bowl.
Well, yeah, right, yeah. This guy Brendan Lynch, he's like, "Oh, we should try Age of Sigmar with us sometime." And I was like, "Nobody fucking plays Age of Sigmar, but sure, if you want to like show me sometime, sure." And then he's like, "Well, like yeah, I'd love to, but like, let me also introduce you to a bunch of guys." And so like between him and my brother, I ended up meeting Nick, and then like Nick introduced me to Mike and a bunch of the other guys in the Indy area, and then some other guys I knew from like War Machine and stuff like that actually started to get into it. And like out of nowhere, I was like, wait, there's like an actual like play group here. What is going on?
See, this was going to be the secret topic of the episode because this is old school RantCast. Is there's always a secret topic. The secret topic was going to be about growing your scene, and that's why I view like Indy right now is, I'm like cheering for y'all. Like you're the scene that
Yeah.
I'm like let's go Indy. You know, like you're the underdogs, the little Warhammer scene that could to me, and I think there's a lot of scenes like this across the entire country, perhaps the whole world. I talked to the unfortunately named Jugs, Japanese United Gaming Society. Talked to their co-founder president, like literally in Japan, talking about their journey in trying to get Warhammer going. In like Osaka, Japan, or whatever the heck, like, or whatever it is, and some of those barriers there, and I think that there are that same sort of feeling of sitting there on the TGA forums or on Twitter and like wanting to feel connected to Warhammer, wanting to play Warhammer. Like how much time do we spend thinking about Warhammer, talking about Warhammer, and like buying boxes and just needing that excuse, that push, that event to go to, and I mean I hate to sound corny, but I think a little bit of it is, if you build it, they will come. Like you really.
Yeah, I was gonna say it has simultaneously been like, because like I have put a ton of work into it, not necessarily hard work, but just lots of hours between talking
No,
to,
work
like,
is work. Work always. Work
right.
is work. It always sucks.
And like some of the other guys, like the core kind of group of guys that like were there when I first started, decided to make this like try and do this thing, and had kind of already had their community, albeit
Little
not
schisms
active in
out,
the
right?
game
Yeah, like
culture, right?
they need a rally point, right?
But it is also at the same time felt so easy because like all we do, like I make, and sometimes I forget to make it. I make a weekly post on Saturday typically saying, hey, Stig Sunday, come out, check it. If you ever want to look at the game, just check it out, meet people, talk about the game. Maybe like we'll try and get demos if we have like the people available to do demos. And then like Nick has been a fucking trooper. It's like he does demos
Nick is
whenever he
great people.
can. We've got another guy, it's got Christian Palmer, who is like one of the most excellent hobbyists for someone who's not been doing it that long, and also just like embodies what I wish I was for any game I played when I was younger. And everything. Not that he's younger than me, right? But like just like because he doesn't care, right? He's like, no, it's fun, it's games. He wants to be competitive and play like those super tight games, but like stuff rolls off him so hard, and he's the first person to just like he has literally bot models for people, right? Like, oh, what would make my army good? Oh, well, probably this unit, and like he's just bought it for his buddies that he's been getting. We have simultaneously with like the hardest work, just because a lot of us put so many hours into just talking to people all the time, help like giving advice, things like that or whatever. But it effortlessly builds.
Mm-hmm.
I was just told by one of my buddies, Palmer is actually 25, which is significantly younger than me, almost a decade. So I'm slightly wrong. He is way younger than me.
No, there you go.
But yeah, it's just it. And again, that goes back to what I was saying about like how Age of Sigmar has been. Like the only community that's even come close to how I have felt, not just locally about Age of Sigmar, is like the Malifaux like meta and community that existed for a long time, particularly in first and second edition. Like it's just super like not even hobby focused, right? But like
It's a
guys who
passion
just want to
project.
play, like
It's
they just want to play the game,
yeah.
have a good time. Even the guys who are taking it seriously and everything like that, they're not doing try hardy type stuff. And like they're obviously bad apples that you hear about and everything in any community. But like
Everyone's got
it was
it.
it was very like they were there to lift people up no matter what, right? And that's what we've got locally in Indy right now, and it's cool. It's great. Like we one of our other locals, just because I don't want to burn myself out on where, but this guy Jordan, he runs what he calls scrums. So it's a tournament over 3-5 weeks or whatever. And like there's been some rockiness with the two we've done and everything like that, but like we've gotten tons of new players to be involved in those. So like even though it's a tournament, right? Like people who've played 2 or 3 games are participating in it and then getting a ton of games in, right? And like it's what really solidified us before Adepticon, leading up to Adepticon, what solidified how much the community had grown, and in like a big, nice way. Like we 5-6 tables going a Sunday. That's great. But 3 Sundays in a row, I had like 16 to 18 Age of Sigmar players in my store, and then people waiting for somebody to finish a game so they can then right. And it's like walking from my retail side to my game side and actually seeing all of that. Right, I'm like, look, there are a lot of people here playing this game, and then like all the people like, and then right, people start coming in and looking at it like, oh, what's this?
Well,
Like,
that
oh,
I mean
it's like
that's
right, like it's just it.
that's
Right? It's effortless at that point.
yeah. Well,
Once
that's
you have the people showing up doing it, and people see they're enjoying themselves, and they're all cool people who are willing to talk to people about it, even if like getting past any awkward nerdy social stuff. Like I've seen people who never come out of their shells like to geek out about this game with complete strangers who were just like, oh, what's this? It looks
right.
cool. And that's what I like. I tweeted a little bit about with Adepticon and everything too. Like that is what I want to get out of this now. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I hope like once my kid's a little older and things like that, I can start going to tournaments more with all the guys. I want to do that because I've always enjoyed playing on a competitive level.
Yeah.
But like, if I could just sit back and build this awesome community, whether it be 10 dudes who've been playing forever and just didn't realize that they were all around each other, or 40, 50 people across all of Indy that play at various stores, not just my store, right? Like
Uh,
that, I'm good, right? Like
yeah.
I pick sometimes because like he's joked like like oh I'll be the best fish player in America or whatever,
John.
and like we'll like yeah we'll like say what like our goals are and everything, and like I've jokingly been like oh my goal is to be on RantCast, and so like but like honest God, especially after Depticon, like
You're welcome.
my yeah my goal is to just have this community,
Yeah.
and not just in Indy too. Like I want to be able to affect other metas and things like that. Like we had a bunch of people from Illinois come down for Indy Storm.
That's awesome.
It was the coolest thing ever. I expected like I was super stoked when it sold out. I knew a few people because like Nick and them told me, oh hey, some of the out of town, like some of these people we know are coming or anything like that. But like I didn't expect quite what I got. Like the partners at work crew, Steve and Tracy and their kids, like they came right. It's like
Yeah.
and I've watched their show a couple times and everything. And it's like that was like the weirdest thing ever when Mike messaged me. He was like, "Hey, is there space? Like, or can like we get them on the wait list?" I was like, "Yeah." And like it worked out, right? Like there was one spot and they were willing to come and just one of them play, and then because of drops and things like that, ended up where all four of them got to play. And
Yeah.
so it was a very very fulfilling, very cool experience that solidified even harder after my Adepticon experience what I want out of this game.
So I'm so happy you walked away from Adepticon, how harrowing that was, and I think that shows a really strong character too.
Well, I
To
think in the moment it wasn't right.
yeah.
Like it was a lot of it was all after the fact.
Right. I mean,
Just like
yeah, even you can see like some of the Twitter posts from folks mid Adepticon like that go on to lambast it down the line. I'm not gonna name any names. I'm not singling
yeah,
anyone out because it's irrelevant. But you can see that like in the moment this is the best thing ever, and then afterwards what a shit show.
yeah,
And
right.
it's like
Like
you know, I mean
there were
obviously.
issues,
Go ahead.
right? Like little tiny things, but nothing that like no one's weekend was ruined. Even the people that like there ended up being some issues with, like they got resolved in a way that while they might have like one example, I'm not going to go into details. I'm like in my head, like it didn't resolve necessarily the way the guy wanted, but like he still ended up having a blast the rest of the time.
Hmm.
Like I spent 4 days just
Yeah.
walking the room to events, 120 people, 200 people, or I never, even when people were losing, I like
Yeah.
didn't
Well,
see the sour grapes and stuff
well,
that like
I
I
think.
expected.
I mean, I think that's the thing is like when you're playing Warhammer, it's awesome. And this is like broadly speaking, when you're playing Warhammer, it's awesome. When you're talking about Warhammer on the internet, whether it's TGA or Twitter or Facebook, it that's when it starts to get
Yeah.
bleh. And part of that is the design of these social media. I'm pointedly going to take a sip from my glass here. I know it might be a little out of focus, but what does that say? Social media was a mistake. Um,
Well, like right, so like you hilariously you are one of my first real examples of Age of Sigmar community, right? Like because like I'm generally pretty open about like my anger issues and things like that in the past and stuff. And like I just was having a conversation with Nick one day, and he's like, "Oh, hey, you should really check out my buddy's thing, RantCast or whatever. Like, I'll get you on the Discord." Like, he told me about this. It was right before the first, well, not the first, but the Rantathon, that last Rantathon or whatever. And
Yeah,
like,
where we raised
so that was you, like
$10,600.
your server was my first real delve into, like, outside of seeing some stuff on Twitter and everything now, into actually interacting with like the greater Age of Sigmar community. And right, like, it didn't disappoint it. And that's kind of like, that honestly was a lot of what kickstarted like
That's
the
awesome.
positive feelings about it and everything, right? Like,
Well, see,
so I'm gonna praise you forever and
no,
always, because
no, don't.
you've
I'm
built a
bad with
great
praise.
community. Yeah, deal with it. Sorry.
um,
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 and I want that. Like, I want what we have in your Discord most of the time, right? Because obviously tempers can run hot sometimes, but
everyone's got
like
their
that,
moments. Yeah,
yeah, right. Like, I want that, which I feel I have cultivated with the help of all my buddies and everything, like in Indy. Like, I want that to be everywhere,
I agree.
right? Like, anytime you talk to somebody, no matter how small their meta is, no matter how large, like, right, like, these are the stories we should be hearing. Like, it's cool that you've got Team USA people in your meta and they wreck everyone's face and like they're the best players in the world. That's awesome, and that's something to be proud of. And like, that's definitely part of the game, and no one should get knocked for that. But also, like, we should be praising how accepting, how helpful, like all the lifting up moments for all the communities. And like, there shouldn't be communities that don't have that, right?
Right. Well,
At the end of the day, we're all getting together to play with our toys and make friends and have a good time.
like
So
yeah, most tournaments are just an excuse to like have an event to look forward to like to
tournaments
be
for me
able.
are, I can play 5 games in 1 or 2 days.
I can take off from work and go to this place and do thing I like and see my friends.
Yeah.
You know, like the game is great and I love playing it, but like, but that other stuff is so much worth it. For me, I've always been community first.
Yeah.
Before I was anybody, you know, when I started, you know, even before I started making content, I was just fascinated by the Age of Sigmar community. I'm like, why is this community like this? You know, like I came into
Yeah.
it like super paranoid from my MTG grinder days, for my FGC, like shit
Yeah.
talking the dude as you're beating him sitting next to you, like you know, like oh, like that was a command grab. He thought he wasn't gonna get command grab. Motherfucker just got command grab. Like just literally shit talking somebody,
Yeah.
like whilst you're gaming with them. And we won't talk about my LOL persona because that's
Well, yeah.
worst,
And that was me in
darkest
War Machine,
timeline. Mephisto
at War
is.
Machine's height in first edition, right? Like, I'm super ashamed that this was like me and a couple of my buddies. Like, we were very good at the game. We took it way too seriously. We were the guys who, like, people like, oh god, Indy's coming to this event, and like, we ran people off from the community just because we never turned it off. Like, or when people were like, oh well, like, what did I do wrong in this game? Like, I was a cock. I'm like, ah, well, sucks to suck. You didn't play well,
Yeah,
right? Like,
when you do the get good,
I didn't
like
give advice, or
yeah,
like I did the like play better models, like
yeah,
very dismissive, fuck off. You don't know, like, right,
yeah.
like, and like anytime I went to an event, like, there was no graciousness for the people running the events. Like, I was just a win at all costs. All I'm doing for this game is playing to win. And then, like, going into second edition of War Machine, we realized we didn't have a community locally anymore, other than a couple of our really good buddies who were kind of toughing it out, right? Because they're our buddies and us. And so, like, I took a huge step back. One of my other buddies, he had turned off even before that. He was like, realized, he like, oh no, I'm a dick. I need to stop. And like, we worked really hard with the guys who were organizing stuff then to kind of build it back up.
See, that's the fascinating thing for Age of Sigmar with me. Like whack is a thing that exists. You know, like there are
Yep.
that guys and so on and so forth. But one of the things I noticed is like with competitive Warhammer players, like they tend to be pretty gracious and awesome too. Like you have this fear that you're going to go and run into like the
Yeah.
hardest nosed, win at all costs, nickel and dime you to beat you on the table. And usually those, again, there's some every community's got, you know, the that guys and the bad eggs or whatever. But for the most part, like you can almost count on the top level players to
Yeah.
be paragons. They won't necessarily coach you while they're beating you, you know. But
But
if you say,
afterwards, they
you're like,
will.
hey, you know, how could I have, you know, given you a better game or something like that? And they'll just be like, well, you know, this here and there. And because one of the things I've noticed is this community wants to grow. They want to play games.
Yeah.
But this I've always been just, why is this community this way? And I have theories. I think it has to do with that jettisoning of that exodus that happened in 1.0, where you just had sort of
I mean, that's why I didn't touch the game, right? Like, I was a fantasy player. I didn't even look at Age of Sigmar. I was like, I didn't burn my models, right? But I was like, I'm never gonna touch that.
Mhm.
And then like a couple years into it, I looked at it and I was like, oh, this looks like dog shit. Like this isn't an actual game. This is like what dwarf players, if they have a beard, get bonuses. Like what type of nonsense is that?
I think we could have a little
I
bit of
know
that.
now it's the coolest thing that I could think of, right?
A little bit.
But
Hand
like, and I
of
didn't know,
Dust, I
know
actually had to die, and
yeah,
come on.
I was so like removed from it. I didn't know second edition was a thing.
Mhm.
And so when I started playing, it was only six-ish months maybe out from third. And so like there's a huge chunk of Age of Sigmar that I just didn't get to experience.
Yeah, I got in at 1.5 basically, like GHB 2017 was when I started. And no, I mean like I just I think the community is great, and we are better than drama that has occurred,
Yeah.
because I know when I'm playing people or when I talk to people as humans again, like you're looking at some of the best folks around. I think most of my current best friends now are just Warhammer people.
Yeah, I mean,
I've got a
like
couple
my
friends
core
left
group
from
of,
college, and then it's just
yeah,
Warhammer.
yeah. I've got my like close knit like guys who've been friends with me for a long time. Thankfully, most of them they all at least have armies. They don't necessarily all play or whatever.
Hmm.
But like I mean, like my friend group these days, outside of those couple guys, it is like Nick and Mike and like that core Indy crew that like, and we're constantly pulling more people into it that like I genuinely enjoy any amount of time I get to spend with any of them. Like
Hmm.
it's great.
Yeah, that's
Ulf
cool.
just brought up Ulf in chat like quote like the try hard middle
Hmm.
is like the thing that all miniature games have to. I not miniature games, also Magic, like all get competitive games have to deal with, and like that is what I see, in my opinion, is not nearly as prolific in Age of Sigmar. Like
There,
obviously they're there, right? But
I think where I would agree with Ulf, or I don't want to put words in Ulf's mouth, but what I would think is it's not usually the top table like legit competitive.
yeah, almost
But
never, right?
it's
In
not
any
them.
game,
It's usually those ones that are just like a step down from them, that are like they're in the fat middle, or they're in that like middle, and they're trying to be top table competitive
yeah, your
players,
big fish, small pond
and they
guys,
have
all
the insecurity that comes along with it and something to prove. And that's when you get kind of dirtbag people.
yeah, and
Be,
that's what I feel I don't see as much in Age of Sigmar.
that
And that
makes
might just be the fact that I have not,
no.
been to many events and everything, right? But
No, like
I mean,
there's
even what I see online, right? Like,
I can think of two very specific individuals. I've had one bad game of Age of Sigmar in years of tournaments. Like one game.
yeah,
I used to say
that's
three,
awful.
but as time has gone on, I quit. I can't remember what the other games were. I just remember the
I
one.
mean, it wasn't that bad, right?
Yeah, so they weren't that bad, were they? Like I just now only one sticks out to me in a history of, I hit the ground running and grinding AOS with all the fervor I had ground other games. I just kind of got like recultured in Age of
Yeah,
Sigmar from how I was playing other games. I'm like, oh wait, like I remember being terrified that. Have I told this story today already? I feel like I've told this day already. I remember being terrified that like I would have like my Shadespire skeletons in with my other skeletons, and my other skeletons have spears, and the Shadespire skeletons have hand weapons.
yeah.
And I'm like, someone's gonna see those. I put them in there because they look cool, and someone's gonna see them, and they're gonna WYSIWYG me, and they're gonna get me disqualified. And I
That
remember
was
just
a
being like,
major hang up I had with my Chaos Warriors. I didn't want, especially using the ones from the start collecting. I didn't want to buy the halberd kits and then chop off these beautiful models to put halberds on these guys. And I was like, I'm never gonna run hand weapons. Like, why can't I just use all my hand? Like, they're all halberds. There's no confusion on the table. And like, I just was super stressed about it. And like, Mike one day was just like, no one's gonna fucking care.
yeah,
Like, if you put a unit of hand weapons down and a unit of halberds down, and those are the only models, like that's where the issue comes.
yep.
Like most people aren't even gonna look at. They're
They're
just
not
gonna
even
ask
gonna
you
look
what
at that
weapons are
level.
those
Yeah,
armed with, and then never even think about it.
yeah.
And yeah, because like honestly, in Warhammer Fantasy, like back in those days, I did encounter lots of people that like were hard nosed WYSIWYG stuff and everything, right? Like even when there was no room for confusion or error, and
So
so like, was traumatized by it.
I was going into AOS, like very WYSIWYG minded, right? Um, and then Frank, the Doc King, pointed out, he's like, it's not in the, it's not in the general rules of Warhammer, right? Like WYSIWYG's not in the core rules and it's not in the GHP. And I'm like, and I immediately changed positions.
Yeah.
Me, the anarchist, when I didn't have a rule to tell me what to do. I was like, huh, well, shit. Like, it just, like, immediately, like, I, like, immediately, like, quit being, like, a hard-nosed WYSIWYG player myself. The minute that happened, I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh, well, then, yeah, it's
I
not
mean,
even a
'cause,
real
like,
rule.
I mean, really, it was a rule that started cropping up in like your Rogue Trader events and things like that to prevent people from cheating people on the fly. Back when you only had paper lists that were handwritten,
hmm
so it'd be really easy to be like, oh no, yeah, that unit definitely has plasma pistol, like a plasma gun, and like right, like just switch what units what, and like right, like it was just there to prevent gamesmanship,
Yeah,
like right.
yeah.
But like I said, in my fantasy days, I had some people that just were ruthless about how they enforced it, even in like the most casual games. And it's just like, I'm like a 12, 13-year-old kid here. I don't even like, my parent likes to buy everything, and they're not going to give me the money to buy a second unit just so I can, like,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well, and I think that that's where the community can and has chilled a little bit, is understanding that people paid for their minis and they should get to play them,
yeah,
and that's, I mean, I hold that line on a lot of stuff. That's why I get pissed when shit gets nerfed into the ground. I'm like, no, they paid for those fucking minis. They should be good. Like you can see these like couple lines of like sort of internal logic that I hold to very firmly in this game. And one of them is like, people should get to play with their stuff. It's
yeah,
very simple, but this cuts in several different directions. This means that like you bought halberd, last edition halberds were good, so you had halberds, and you did that, and now this, now they did what they did to blood knights, where blood knights just interchangeably have swords or spears. They have no,
yeah.
their profiles don't even
I'm
change.
hoping that's what happens to like Chaos Knights and Chaos Warriors, right? Like, just
Yeah, like who cares?
give them a badass weapon that
Yeah,
represents all of them.
just say, yeah, like, demon possessed weapons, right? Like, that's a good one, because like
Yeah,
then it can be anything. Who gives a shit?
yeah.
Blood slaking blades, or like, just say whatever the
Whatever
fuck.
super nerdy chaos thing
Yeah,
they
just
need to get
nerd
to say,
shit, just a bunch of nerd jargon thrown together. That's what they fucking fight with. Who gives a crap? Like, this game has too many granularities already. Too many. People will call it bloat. I don't quite like the word bloat. But
yeah,
like, there's too many granularities to begin with. Like, you don't need extra ones. Like, why are we splitting hairs? Especially when it comes to the point where you're now sort of adding a barrier between play for people who have minis that just want to fucking play the game, and they're worried that you're gonna fucking dock them points because you're using some Shadespire models, or they're using a start collecting push fit shit, or whatever it is. Like, just let them play. I know some of us have 3 or 4 or 5 armies. Some of us have way too much Warhammer
or even
armies.
aren't even out of boxes, right? Like,
Right. Not that I'm
the
gonna
perils of having a
shame
discount.
anybody. You know who you are, and you feel bad about it. I don't need to tell you, but not everybody's like that. When you're talking about, like, kids or somebody's first army that they just want to play for 1 year and get good at it, right? Like, let them have
Yeah,
some breathing room with that.
like the idea that you would like the idea that there are people out there that would turn away like a 10 to 14-year-old who like wants to just use what they have to represent this other thing that lets them actually play the game.
Yeah, yeah, I don't
I was
know.
like, let them play. Like, they're gonna get the thing once they like can tell their parents, no, like I had a blast and I need this to continue doing that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well,
they'll get it eventually. Like, who cares?
like, and that's the community. Like, I mean, that's where the community really is. Like, we can, as long as we have healthy communities that are cross pollinating, which is something I really want to talk about a little bit. Is you said you had some folks come into Indy. I get it. I will affectionately still refer to us as the Midwest Fortress here, but I do want to make a more concerted effort for us to, like, head out to other people's tournaments and vice versa.
Yeah,
I've
one of the things I definitely wanted us to talk about is because the gist I have gotten from a lot of people about that like divide is centered around ITC and in running Indie Storm and actually like because like they like I wanted it to go ahead and be an ITC event and things like that just to sate the players that wanted that. There's nothing about ITC that prevents any of the Midwest stuff that we're constantly judged for or whatever. I had soft scores. They didn't get programmed into BCP right. Like BCP is not necessarily set up for it, so that was kind of a hurdle, but it can be. I've just got to
I've heard word
contact
on the
them
street that there might be some conversations going on there with some folks between.
Yeah,
some folks.
apparently it would have just been as simple as like 2 or 3 months before the event. I could have sent them an email of all the rubrics I wanted, and they potentially could have got that set up. Right?
I hear there's some
Like,
conversations going
who
on right now
knew?
about that. Yeah.
Who
Yeah,
knew
but
if you
you
talk
don't
to
know what you
people,
don't know, and it's really easy
Yeah.
for a couple like armchair TOs to fucking say what woulda, coulda, shoulda been done about an event. But money where your
Yeah.
mouth is. Run a 200-person event. Run a 30-person event. Like I
Yeah,
said,
I
I mean,
successfully ran a Midwest
Mhm.
hearted, right? Like with soft scores and anything like that. Like they weren't very hard scoring soft scores, right? Like I very intentionally was very easygoing for my first event, but like I had all that stuff,
yeah. See,
and it was still the mythical ITC event on
Yeah.
BCP that everybody needs.
Yeah.
That like
Well, they
got
gotta,
like
yeah, they gotta
like
get
there's
their validation points. You like your
yeah,
gamers.
right, and
You've been
I
trained since Pac-Man to watch the number go up, and if the
yeah,
number doesn't go up,
and it wasn't a problem.
the number's not going up. How the fuck do I validate? But no, sorry, I don't.
Yeah, and it wasn't a problem. And like players like John Anderson, when talking to him about I like another thing I learned, right? Like ITC points, they don't actually care about your placement. It's just if you get wins.
Seal
So
clubbing. Yeah.
right, it's like, well, yeah, right. It promotes that a little bit, right? But that's like,
Yeah.
but like even the idea that like, well, soft scores kept me from being getting first place. You're not
Oh,
actually going to the event
oh,
for first place. You're going for your ITC points. So win all 5 of your games.
yeah.
Probably still end up getting very highly ranked
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get what you actually want out of it, right?
Well,
Like,
Ziggy, same thing on last RantCast. He's like, I'm not looking at soft scores. I just look at the win rates,
yeah,
rates and matchups, and you know, that's what I said a while back about like the reason the competitive versus narrative versus soft scores. It's such a straw man argument to have to begin with, like because they're just not
yeah.
they're
It
not
feels
at
very
odds.
you're having fun the wrong way,
Yeah,
right?
like they're not. These things aren't at odds. They're not mutually exclusive. And I know for a fact that if you have a competitive mind, I know you because I am you. You
Yeah.
just look at the win rates. You
Well,
don't.
that's why that's part of why I wanted to figure it out, right? Is like I was like, it can't be there can't be this world where like you can't harbor these sports like plus and hobby plus events and also not benefit the really competitive
You can do both. You
they
can do
they both
both.
happen,
You
right?
can
There's
do.
literally like unless there is this weird unless ITC works super weird, there's no reason it can't both happen.
Mm-hmm.
And through just a handful of conversations and then actually running an event, like I had like my goal for Indy Storm was just 100 like to run a good event for people, right? But like I wanted to run a Midwest ITC event.
You're not the only one who
And I did.
has. I mean, that whole thing is is a fucking misnomer to begin with. Is Midwest doesn't use ITC. Like there are several about 30, usually around 30-person tournaments, 2 dayers. Like, I think there's one in Michigan. Like there's a few tournaments around
I'm
here.
hopefully running another one in September
Yeah,
that will be at national venue. So I'm looking to have
yeah. No,
they're looking to set it up for 100 plus 40K players. And like honestly, if I get traction, I will do the same for Age of Sigmar. Like
yeah. No, I
I'm
have
like
I have a problem with something related to ITC, but it has nothing to do with ITC itself. Run your event your way.
yeah,
My whole thing is just literally run your event your way. Community first. Run it for the community you're trying to build.
yeah,
Cross pollinate. Give people some onboarding from other communities. Say, hey, come over, play. Do an invitational style thing if you must. Where you're like, oh, like we're gonna reserve 10 seats for the East Coast. Whatever your size of your event is, whatever your threshold is,
yeah,
just to make sure you get some folks from the East Coast out or the West Coast out. Like,
yeah. And
you,
that was one of the things I learned, partly because of the partners at war, like crew and stuff like that, right? A lot of Nick said in chat earlier, like Class Mafia and stuff like that, like they were all like not all, but a chunk of them that came were able to get in right away. But like I think, especially if I get the chance to run bigger events, not what I can fit in my store, I want to at least initially in signups square away X number of seats, right? Because like what you said, like I want all the communities to be able to interact with each other,
see, I've
right?
proposed this like way back when I was an idiot who didn't know anything about like beef and stuff. I'm like, well, why not just have like, some like reserved seating for cross pollination? Like one of the things I noticed with Midwest events is one, you don't know where the fuck they are or who's running them.
Yep.
Like that can be a problem with finding any event.
Yeah,
Any event.
social
The
media
only event
presence
I
on
knew
Midwest
about
is trash.
going on the internet, just trying to do a fucking when you're new to Warhammer, when you're just getting into the community and you're starting to look for a tournament, if you don't know somebody who knows about a tournament and you just go Warhammer tournament, you're going to see Bobo practically before you see anything else. You're like, well, that doesn't fucking do me any good. I'm not flying across the pond. And you're going to see Adepticon. And you might see LVO like show up in it, but if you just like
It'll be 40K pointed though, right? Like you won't
and
even
you're not even
realize
gonna
LVO has a-
you're not even gonna see Age of Sigmar tournaments necessarily. Like there's this like, and I know some people are like, well, yeah, they're just in BCP, and I'm like, you don't even know about BCP yet. Like this is
Yep.
Before you like.
Well, it's what I got to earlier, right? I didn't know an Age of Sigmar community existed.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
even when I tried to dig a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like, nope, that doesn't exist. I don't sell the product. No one else I know at other game stores in the area talks about selling a ton of the product, and I don't see people playing the game. Clearly, it's not around because also there wasn't anything on social media for it at the time, like really either.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like I got made an admin of like the Indianapolis Facebook group that we have that had basically been like not used for
Yeah, just a
really
ghost town, one of those ghost
anything
communities.
forever.
Yeah.
And like it still doesn't get used a ton, right? But like I put my posts in there
Well,
consistently.
well, I
Jordan
guess.
promotes this.
Well, let me ask you, how did you advertise in Indie Storm?
So that's my one gripe about Indy Storm. So all the guys and like gals that are part of the like that have like that own the company or whatever, right? Like that does it. They're all great people. There was a lot of logistical stuff. Like I didn't have access to BCP because one of the guys made the event under his name, and it turns out you can't. That's one of the things that I sent like a survey email to BCP like you can't assign TOs. So it's like it's one account. So like I had no way to adjust details on the event, put details on the event, and everything. So like, it was all very much I was telling him a thing, and then he was putting it in there. So there was lots of miscommunication there. They made a Facebook group, a Facebook event that again they didn't make me like a moderator or organizer for, so I couldn't interact with that. So on my end, it was just making sure all of my people were sharing that event in various spaces, and then I went to Twitter right as best I could, and hashtag #AOS hashtag any storm, like I threw whatever hashtags I could think of that might grab someone's
Get some
attention,
engagement,
and then
yeah.
relied on you guys to retweet and stuff.
Yeah,
like
and
that.
I think I told you to make a post in our Discord.
Yeah, right, like and various discords and stuff, and so like that, like, and it worked, right?
You sold out, right?
But
12 hours.
on that side of things, like I already told him, like next time, like I will set up the BCP event for it. Like we either need to do a Facebook page that I'm an admin of, or you need to let me make the Facebook event. Like right, like I need to be able to have my hands. Like I get registration was going through your guys' website, so that like you can make sure like that. And but like that was a hurdle, right? When people were dropping, like there, it turns out we had someone who I don't remember who it was, but there was someone who who wanted to come to the event. I didn't even know they existed because they weren't on the final list of people I got sent. But then they contacted the Indy Storm people with like their receipt, and they're like, "Oh yeah, is there space for this person?" I was like, "No, like I'm filled again, like because I got waitlist people in here." And they're like, "Well, we need to get this guy in. He paid." And I was like, "Okay."
See, that's that
and I had a lot of stress at like the week and a half leading up to the event.
Yeah.
When I started to have to get all that stuff together, and I was like, "Well, I need to get lists from people," and like so I'm gonna be emailing people for reminders and everything. Like getting the information from them for starters, since I didn't have access to it, and then like all those little things, wherever I was just like, "This is a goddamn nightmare."
Well, that's
For
the
the
convention
long time,
barrier people don't think
me
about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I've been in enough conventions. That's what there's, like I said, some of the talking points some folks kind of really hard committed to there. I'm like, it's so clear that you've never been a part of something that's organized like this, where you have sort of like three heads of the serpent type thing going on, where you've got like, you've got a convention, you've got a venue, you've got a, so like who's running the convention? Indie Storm. This happens in Gen Con, it happens at AMKey, it'll happen at Adepticon. It happens at any of these things that are going to be sort of community driven. You're going to have issues. I've been part of the convention scene since I was 17 as an actual worker. No BrandCon in Eau Claire. I helped run video game rooms, and I was one of the people who stood in the room and made sure you didn't steal the DVDs for watching various anime. Um,
Yeah.
I've done this shit forever, and every year there's something else. It's never as simple as, well, you just run the event and then it runs, and like, it's kind of interesting because when you're talking about, like, well, you started running it and the community fell together and so on and so forth. But I mean, the point is like you're balancing different tool sets. You've got BCP at play. You've got Indy Storm as an organizer. You have your store itself that it sounds like you're running out of. So you have your own stipulations as a storefront, I'd imagine, as a venue that you've got to consider.
Yeah, I mean, which like I mean, it was like just I put like in the pack, right? Like what our store, like we're a family first store, so like I had to, like, we didn't have an issue, and we were never gonna have an issue, like no vulgarity, like super
I'm sorry.
accepting.
I wanted to come to Indy Storm, but now I can't. I swear,
No,
way
no
too
extreme
much.
vulgarity, because I work there and I still say fuck and damn and like, right,
Yeah,
like, it's
yeah,
just it's that being aware. Oh, there's a kid in the room. Maybe don't talk about like
yeah. No, you don't need
how
to go. I
your
got
mega
it.
gargant's dong is gonna knock that vampire's head off or something, right? Like,
No, I get you. I get you. Yeah, no,
uh,
no, but you learn, right? Like, this is like
yeah,
going forward now, like, needing to be able to.
yeah, and like I was real late, but partly because procrastination, but also because like I was very stressed, like when writing the pack, right? Like,
You're writing. Is this your first
I've,
pack?
because I've
Was
never
this your
done
first
events,
pack?
right?
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
never been to any particular event either. So like the first pack I even really saw, like, and had my hands on, because like Mike had showed me some of his and stuff, and like Nick did a good job of digging up some old ones from events. But like the Adepticon pack was the first one I ever really had in hands, was able to like tangibly look at, and like so I was super late on getting the pack out, right?
Hmm.
Like like, honestly, I think it got posted like the Monday before
Oof.
the event, and it
See,
didn't matter because like everybody that had like, because thankfully the
I mean,
joy of being a smaller event,
it's smaller.
everybody
Yeah.
had contacted me and asked questions like, "Oh, is there a painting requirement?" Yeah, like super bare bones, like just lots of that stuff. But right, like I need to have my shit together,
Hmm.
like, and get that out sooner, like, and ideally, right, I build a pack that I want most of my events to get run off of, and then just tweak if needed. And like I'm gonna, like, I've got mine, like it's sitting on my desktop here at home, my desktop at work, like it's there for anytime I feel like, yeah, I'm gonna sit on it and fucking tear it apart. And
Hmm.
um but right, it's like that, right? Like I did that, I handled that poorly.
See, I
Like
got
where
terrified by the pack the event we don't talk about. Hey, one I ran. It was like 12 people. Um, an overpriced 12-person event because people had to buy a badge for the convention we were at. Yeah, it was just shit. No, everyone came, had a blast, and we bought them dinner afterwards. So to make up for it.
yeah.
But it was yeah. I mean, I mean, the pack was intimidating. A painting rubric was intimidating for me because I'm
Yeah,
not.
I just ended, I won't lie, I copied Mike's from Circle City Clash. It was a real simple
I
20-point
copied.
training rubric
I
that I
copied.
knew everybody was going to be able to get the 20 points on unless they just shit on it, right?
I
Like,
copied Steve Herner's.
yeah, like
Like, I'm like,
I
Steve
needed
Herner's
I
supposed to be a
needed
great
one.
hobbyist. I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, can I have your painting rubric? I want to run a tournament. He's like, yeah, no problem, bro. I'm like,
Yeah.
like
One
I
one of the things I regret about my pack is I want painting to be there, but I want, like, my first few events, I'm probably going to be lighter on it just because a lot of my locals, at the very least, are new.
I
So I don't want to
I mean, that's where
discourage
you
them,
that's where
or
you have a paint like a painting cap that's
yeah.
like achievable, and you have a rubric that is A B C D. Like, here's the stuff. I'm a fan of what I call the grab bag. So like, you don't require a display board. You don't require non-metallic metals. You don't require edge
But if you
highlights.
get them, they're bonus points that then get you into the whatever the cap is,
Yeah,
right?
you just have it sort of like a tiered category of like tabletop.
Yeah,
You have like these are the folks trying to get the most tournament points they can for paint,
yeah.
and make that a little bit out of reach from basic tabletop standard, right? Like, you want.
That is hilariously an example of something I need to spell in the pack. Like, I just, like, in the painting room, like I just want to see you put effort in, right? And
Yeah,
thankfully
like
didn't have a ton of issues. I just need to put
yeah.
Games Workshop Battle Ready, and like if you need to see an example, download Citadel Color and look up any model
Yeah.
And it'll literally show you what a battle ready model is supposed to look like.
Well,
Um, just cut out the middleman. Like this is what GW would require anything they did. So,
mm-hmm.
and it's not hard, right?
Mm-hmm. And then
But the thing I really regret
go.
not doing is I wanted, again, with the idea of community first, I wanted a much more involved sports rubric. And I just didn't do it, right? Like I couldn't, because like I couldn't get out of my head about like what's fair to like ask people of and to score them on there. So it just ended up being a couple questionnaire, like a 4 or 5 question, like every game, check off the thing, they get a point for it, and it's shit that nobody was ever gonna miss unless like they came in to be an asshole, right?
Well,
and like it worked, right? And like, but that wasn't really what I wanted out of it, and I couldn't figure out what else to include in it, and I still really haven't. Like, and I've been like racking my brain.
This is something I've been considering for a while. Is how one of the arguments that cropped up is like sports shouldn't be called sports, and I'm like, that is literally a semantical argument, right? Like that is your like who gives?
I mean, my award wasn't sports, right? It was like most honorable opponent.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, like what we colloquially refer to it as, that we know to be the the other. Like I think calling it the community award or the community score.
Honorable companion.
There you go. Brilliant. I think I like calling it the community. It's clear that what's going on here is there's 3 spheres of the game that are being honored. It's the community sphere. Because this is a community, or I should say, the social sphere of the game is the social sphere being honored. It is the gamer sphere being honored, the actual play, and the hobby sphere being honored. That's what these 3.
Be a good person, right?
Yeah, but how do you quantify? How do you quantify?
Well, don't be a dick, right? Is really follow the rules the proper way. Like, don't be doing shady gamesmanship stuff, right? And just generally be supportive of everybody at the event, right?
No, see, this is where
so now quantifying those things in some way that
this is where MEFCON is going to like go off the deep end, and I invite people's rage at me when they see my sports rubric. And I come up with some super flowery name for the several trophies that will be under the community category. You will get actual tournament points in your overall. That's right. If you cut promos against your opponents. Like,
I mean, I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. I don't get to watch really before, but yep, give me all the points for that.
Yeah,
I will send videos weeks in advance.
Yep,
like,
you get if you have walk up music, 2 points. I'm gonna some people I already thought sports trophies were sweet because first off, see, I am a competitive douchebag who really wants to win, and I think the more hardware the better. The more categories to compete in, the more things to ascribe to, the better. I don't get these cowards who only want one trophy or something. How cowardly of you! Like, why wouldn't you want to try to win at the most possible things you could? I don't I'm not a good painter, but if there's a painting trophy, you know what I'm gonna get better at? Painting, because I want a fucking trophy.
Yeah, right.
Like, what the fuck are these? I don't get this mentality. I don't get this.
And that's what I want out of that rubric, right? Like, not only to give
but
a guideline,
you got to communicate people. You got to communicate it to people how to game that. How
that
do
should
I?
Be a trophy you brag about, right? Yeah. I went to this 200-person event and I got the trophy that said everybody thought I was the coolest, chillest dude in the room.
Yeah.
How is that not something you brag about?
Yeah, I'm very proud of my my sports trophy, winning it with Nagash during the peak hatred phase of
that
Nagash.
Should be worth tournament points on its own, right?
Yeah, right. Like you. Well, that's the thing is I actually in my sports tiebreakers for my tournament pack, I did use win-loss record as one of the tiebreakers because if you beat somebody and they like you.
Oh, so I didn't actually plan a tiebreaker, which was almost an issue. And because my sports trophy went to a combination of those points you got each round from your opponent, and then a favorite opponent.
Yeah.
Right? And it came down to 2 people. They both had the same number of votes and everything like that. And thankfully, I was able to avert crisis because I had you only get 1 prize on the podium, right? So you take whatever you and I would have given somebody the option, right? You take whatever you feel is best.
Mm-hmm.
But like one of the people got best of their faction, and so they were very happy with that. So then the other person was able to get. But yeah, it was like there was they had the like ever and like it was great about it that made me feel really good. It's like it was unanimous.
Mhm.
All 5 of their opponents voted them both like their favorite opponent, right?
Yeah.
And so like
I
it wasn't even like, well, everybody got like 1 vote, and these guys got like 2 votes. It was like, well, no, like this is like a super feel good because like they were both legitimately everybody's favorite person.
My sports trophy. I got 4 favorite opponent votes, and Ty, who's in my Vampire the Masquerade game, playing Salvatore, got 4 favorite opponent votes. So it came down to the checklist thing, and he was late for a game on Sunday. Like just slept in a little bit because he was hungover. So like just objectively speaking, lost 1 point on the rubric. So
he was less cool of a dude because he drank.
Objectively, it said I drank too.
Yep.
Objectively, it says right here, like
you're a better member of the community.
That's right. I'm that much better. Like I am one punctuality mark better than Ty, and never let him.
I had not even considered the idea of win-loss going into it because of that, like that statement, right? Like if you can win all of your games and everyone still think
you're awesome,
because it's like what I used to like the reason I didn't like sports like awards a lot of stuff, particularly my Warrington days, like generally speaking, you always saw the person who like did the worst that got it right. And it just felt like such a pity. Like, well, they're not losing. They're like
no, we literally give out wooden spoons for the person who does.
Yeah,
the worst.
Right. And that's what it always felt like because those events didn't have wooden spoons like everywhere. And so, yeah, like there's an element where like win loss I probably will go ahead and include in the tiebreaker report because it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If I show up with a super toxic Archeon, double Varangard, Sorcerer, Chaos Lord, couple Untamed Beast, flock that's just going to table people in 2 turns or whatever, right? Like,
and they
still
love you.
Cool
yeah,
dude and fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, give me that fucking trophy.
Yeah, that's like I won that with the. I should have got right? 1 extra vote for playing Nagash into it, like, and having being on. I was on the top 10. Like I top 10 that tournament. So like I
have the
top 10.
Best.
Nagash, I not only am I better than Ty in punctuality for my sports, I did it on hard mode.
Liked you while you were being really good and
being really good at Warhammer, like
break your heart. My only experience with Nagash, I dropped him in 1 salvo shooting with Cruel Boys.
You won't hurt my feelings.
The only time I've seen on table was against my brother. And a unit of 6 unit of 6 Bolt Boys, right? Just went.
I was born into a meta with original Clown Car, like trying to play Nagash. Like that's where, you see these cycles of rage that happen in our community, and because I don't think the rage ever disperses for the previous thing that was causing the anger. Mm-hmm. It just stays there, and then it moves on to the next thing. So like the people who are pissed at like change host Tzeentch, they stayed pissed when Tzeentch got good again. Like they never weren't not pissed. And people who are pissed at KO were pissed at Clown Car before, and that you just see these like cycles of rage that just repeat themselves. They're inescapable. Just be excellent to each other for crying out loud. Manzak here says, at the end of the day, an event that boasts quality visual is king. It is the essence of what sells and captivates. I don't think anyone can argue that. GW rules are good for fair competition. I kind of agree with you, Manzak. That's why I don't mind like a bit heavier soft score tournament, even though I myself am a shitty painter. Okay, so I'm not going to win best overall, but I can still win best general. Like I'm not broken up about that. Like if somebody's ego is like, I didn't win best overall because like stupid soft scores or something like that, well, then be proud that you fucking went 5-0. Like kick some ass, whatever. You have a good, strong strength of schedule, max your point, do everything you can as a gamer. I don't understand this like mutually exclusive crap. It's just an extra thing.
Yeah.
And trying
to care about if that's and it's like Nick says a lot of times, like the event you're signing up for. Mm-hmm. You can see the pack, right? Like
and so, that's where you gotta write a good pack that sets expectations, that lays all these cards out. Yeah.
That takes soft score into overall. If you don't care about those soft scores, and like are going to get upset about not getting best overall,
or don't be a coward and like learn how to get better at painting like a
Yeah,
badass.
right. Like or put the effort in, and who knows, maybe you'll still get it.
And
Right?
you
Like,
can surprise yourself. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, especially if the rubric is something, I think there's a really good I think we
I've
have a
not seen
good
one that isn't attainable, right?
I like the tiered system where you have like,
Yeah.
like this is the going for it tier where like this is but then that's the separate trophy, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how you're winning best paint. You're in the going for it tier.
You're gonna get your 25 tournament points or whatever.
Whatever the
that count
cap
for best
is,
overall
whatever
for hitting
satiates, yeah.
that basic or a little above basic that everybody can attain, right? And
Yeah.
then the people who want the giant golden paintbrush on a plaque or whatever, right, are gonna do all those extra things.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I don't. To me, it just doesn't. It doesn't factor in my mind as a problem. But also, this does tie back a little bit. And the reason I read Manzak's comment here is this ties back to a little bit of what you talked about when you were building the indie scene, or helping build the indie scene in the tournament. People like the best way to get into Warhammer is to go watch Warhammer.
Yep.
Like
I tell people all the time.
It's
I've always wanted. Just come watch.
Yep. Come and watch Warhammer get played. And this is where, again, this also ties into what Sean was saying about wanting to be able to like watch Warhammer happening at the biggest tournament, in North America. Like that's all the same to me. That's all the same point to me. That the reason for having good paint scoring, it's all the same point, because the best way to get into Warhammer is to go watch Warhammer. The reason you should have stuff on the internet available for people to look at Warhammer being played is because the best way to enjoy Warhammer is to see Warhammer being played. Like, it's, again, it fucking goes, the best way to build a community is to play fucking Warhammer so people can see Warhammer being played. Yeah. This is a truth, a first principle of this game. I don't disagree so hard that this is the hill I will die upon if someone's like, yeah, I just don't like paint scores. I'm, fine, okay. Like, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind, but from my perspective, this line is such a commonality, is such a through line, is such a a truth of the game. I don't think you have Warhammer. I don't think Warhammer can be like extricated from the hobby of it. It is a visual, communal, social game.
Yeah, my wife, hilarious. She's picked on me and everything. Like she and rightfully so, someone who doesn't paint and things like that. Like, paint scores feel very gatekeepy to her, and there's a level she's not wrong. Like, but I think how we fix that, at least on some level, is having what we talked about, where like there's just this bare minimum that, again, if you also have a strong community, you can help people achieve.
Right, and people will push you to be better hobbyists, and there's, for every competitive coverage tournament fucking content creator out there are hundreds more channels that just do stuff about hobby. In fact, you're going to be far more successful if you want to create content if you have a hobby channel than if you have a competitive coverage channel. I know that in our very specific sphere of interaction with like the particular podcasts that cross-pollinate that I'm part of, the particular Twitter community that I'm part of, because I am an avid tournament goer. I've been in a hiatus, but I'm sorry, a once in a century global pandemic and 2 young kids.
Yeah, no, I don't think you
and an asthmatic partner kind of have me.
You're lying. You're not into the game.
Yeah, I'm not really into. Yeah, I didn't start a whole
guy who's never been to an event to play.
Yeah, no, me. Okay, yeah, it's all, I'm just this is all. Mephisto is, after all, a character I play on TV. So no, it's I am a very tournament focused, very tournament. So that is the sphere I happen to interact in. I talk to a lot of folks in here. But if you take one step back from our little dialogues about Adepticon, you take one step back from ITC, when you take one step back from that and you look at like Warhammer, it is consumed as a hobby. It is consumed as a visual medium. You have entire, like, some of the best painting in the world. Like, how many times do I see like a Japanese painter who just all they do is like paint busts and Gundam and stuff like that, and then, or Gunpla, sorry, and then just suddenly like they've just cracked out an Archeon and just demolished it in painting.
Yeah.
They're not going to play. They just wanted to make me
God.
feel bad that I will never paint
Yeah, I've got a buddy
half as good
locally,
as
his name's
that.
Jose. He played War Machine and stuff, and he stepped away from gaming entirely and just got into like he was using airbrush years ago before that became like a common thing, and just like he did a privateer press competition at Gen Con for like he painted the Scar bust, all airbrushed and like inks and won with it, right? And like he's never looked back. I don't think he plays games even casually anymore, right? Like he just paints shit and hangs out with people, and he's phenomenal at it.
Mhm.
And like, yeah, he'll go and buy stuff just to paint it and put it on a shelf and never do anything with
Yeah,
it.
sell it to somebody else, flip it. I don't know, whatever you do with it. You know, it's you spent your hard-earned cash, you put your time into it, do with it what you will. That goes back to the, let people play with their stuff. Like, do with it what you will. Like, I don't know. There's a democratization of this hobby that I think is essential. I mean, this is core in reality. Like the democratization of your free time. Like, take ownership and onus over it. Like it's okay. It's your leisure. And that's where like you see the pack. If I don't like it, then I don't go. I think pack writing needs to be something we're a little bit more focused on as a community. Writing good packs, setting expectations, making some of. I don't want a standardized pack. Early on in getting into the community, when I was still very much in my MTG brain, I was for like a standardized pack, and I think Ian from Just Play had like a pack you could download, and like there's a standardized pack. That's a useful tool. I think right now actually Games Workshop has one. Like
Yeah, they just released one, and like honestly, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, so
Like it hits very basic requirements and like guidelines.
Yeah,
and, the biggest thing that made me happy about it was the like code of conduct in it.
Yeah,
like the biggest portion of it is the code of conduct, right?
Right, and I think, like I said, it's having that's a useful tool, but I think we need to sort of standardize like patterns of behavior regarding the pack. Our painting rubrics, including them in it. The rubric need not be the same. Pardon me. Oh my gosh, I have the cough button and everything, and I couldn't make it to it in time. Oh,
I've been coughing the whole time, so you're good.
No, it's. Excuse me. Feels like the water I drank to help with the cough had a hair in it. So now I'm just doomed.
Gross, like my whole body just like.
No, you just 2 hours of Mephisto coughing. That's the rest of the podcast, everyone. Let's see. I think there's enough space for all kinds of events, and people should run the event they want to run.
Mm-hmm.
People should, yeah. I think that's fair. So let's let's sort of round out tonight by talking a little bit about Indy Storm itself. I think we've talked about a lot of things. So, 2-dayer.
Yep.
30%. I know 29, but 30% event.
Plan to be a 32, but
yeah. So not bad. First one you ran.
Yep.
And how did you approach? So this is your first pack. You mentioned you had some struggles, but you've learned the lessons. That's the best. That's the most important part, right?
Yeah.
Like we, like I said, I've been in convention scenes my entire adult nerd life, and
same.
there's always stuff, like Gen Con, whatever it is, Gen Con, Amkey, UmaCon.
There's always going to be a competition.
Yeah, there's always something you gotta work toward and get better at, right? There's always hiccups. So you learned the lesson here. When you wrote the pack, did you decide to share your battle plans? Did you
No, so I did. I think my intention, and again, like learning everything. Like my intention was, I didn't want anybody to know what the designated battle plan would be until after the list had been submitted. Because, and I debated with some of the local guys about it, right? People can claim it doesn't happen, but like I saw it all the time in War Machine and stuff. Like you can tailor a list to the series of scenarios you're going to play, and that like the counter argument I got people like, well, yeah, but then like people are just like, you're going to get even harder matchups. Not necessarily, right? Like you can build a list that can play safely and just wreck those scenarios if you know what they are ahead of time. That's just the nature of these games. It's all numbers, right? So I wanted to avoid that. I stupidly made my list submission the Wednesday before. So then I was like, oh, that only gives me 2 days to drop them anyways. And so what I ended up doing is like I rolled them that week. Like,
Oh my gosh! So you randomly rolled your
yeah, which
disgusting.
was my
No,
intention anyways, even before,
kidding.
even if I had given them to people like ahead of time. Like I was just gonna random roll because like I like, especially for my first event, I was like, no, I'm gonna play the game how like if you open up the general's handbook to sit and play somebody, that's what the process
I
is gonna
respect
be like.
that. No, I respect that. I really do. I do. I like the kind of trying to find that that you've said it a couple times, like that beginner, not beginner event.
Yeah,
I don't think is
I mean, so there because there are a handful of scenarios, and like even in my event, right, like a couple of them that ended up happening, the battle plans, like that people just shit on all the time. I have a little more faith in Games Workshop than other people.
the Lord of Chaos, right? On Discord is your name.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go on. Continue. Sorry.
but like right, so like I have a little more faith in Games Workshop and their ability to write these things. Like they're not perfect, but I don't think they're as bad. Like I get a lot of like, well, completely invalidated the army if it does this thing or whatever. It's like, well, that's part of it though. You know that is potentially an option. Plan for it.
Mhm.
Uh, and but yeah, like I just wish I had gotten it out a little sooner. So what I ended up doing was like literally the night before the event, like Friday, it was like Friday afternoon or whatever. I tweeted out what the 5 battle plans would be, not the order we would play them, right, but just what the 5 would be.
Mhm.
So then people could look at them and everything. Spoiler: a lot of people didn't.
Unforeseen.
Yeah. But then yeah, day of, I knew I wanted to start with tectonic interference once I saw that it was on there because it's a pretty straightforward. I think does a good idea of capturing what the game is and everything like that. Like it's kind of a bare bones basic without being the you know once you hold all the points you win automatically type thing or whatever, right?
I like those for the
Um,
end of the days, personally.
yeah. Um, and then I knew, and again, like now I don't want to like randomly roll necessarily, but like I knew once I saw the device because like so my it was tectonic interference, power and numbers, the vice, savage gains, and power struggle. I wanted to end day one on the vice. Like I love that battle plan because in my opinion it is a really
In
good
case someone's not
equalizer.
familiar with the Vice, why don't you take us through why you love it? The Vice.
So it starts. There are 2 objectives, not wholly right, like not fully on the board, but in the corners,
Mhm.
and then they move to kind of more central board, and then you get to where I believe it's round 4. It's round 4 and 5, I believe. There's just one objective in the center. So like the objectives, you are losing the objectives you have. New ones are being placed that you then have to go to, right? And I think it's a really good equalizer. Like there are some kind of powerhouse armies lists that have trouble with it because they're meant to just find where the objectives are and stay there. And so like obviously like, and then some of the slower armies like obviously it kind of like hampers them in a way that's positive I think for everybody because like they'll dominate in again the scenarios where it's just like yeah on the like 11-inch line or whatever your objectives you're never going to lose them, so as long as you can then get one from your opponent you win. So it's very interesting and out of the box battle plan that like I didn't expect from them that I think I kind of always want to have in my
Well,
pack until
it's
they
forced engagement is what it is,
yeah.
and that's what
And so
makes it
until they
great.
come up with another one that I like even more, I think I kind of always want to have that to be the like linchpin in my game.
You're using it how I'm trying to remember what there's a lot of the one that was an instant draw from last edition. What was it? I think it was,
Again, I barely know anything.
I think it was Knife to the Heart. Knife to the Heart was like the
yeah,
instant
Nick
draw.
just kind of
Yeah. Yeah, you're so you're using it like just to like kind of separate but you're doing
it
it in a
kind of
little
breaks
bit.
the pack up a little bit
Yeah,
more,
you're
right?
doing it in a
So,
little bit different way because it's the more of the forced engagement. But yeah, Knife to
yeah,
the Heart was one of those like sort of prove it ones.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but
Continue,
yeah,
sir.
so that was like again, once I saw them, I was like, cool, I want that, and I knew I wanted to save Savage Gains for day 2 because it's just a very common played one. It's a fun one. And again, very similar to Tectonic, it's easy. And I didn't necessarily know where I wanted it on day 2, right? But like I was like, okay, I'm gonna save that for day 2. So that was just a matter of Like I basically random rolled on if it was going to be power and numbers or power struggle. We got power and numbers. That is probably the one I've gotten the most negative feedback about. I personally think it's a cool battle plan. A lot of people didn't because again, people from there are 3 objectives on each player's side, and you can starting on the second turn burn any of them to gain points based off what turn it is on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 2 points and then like 3 and then 5, like whatever. And so if you were like one of the games we had, someone didn't have a lot of their models on the board and someone was playing dragons, and so they were able to have 5 of the 6 objectives. And it's like I got called over, and that was the game I was playing ringer for. And it's like I got from my game I had to step over, and they were like, so like can I burn all of these or is it one per turn? I was like, this isn't the one. Like there's another burn objective one that's one per turn. This is not that. And like so I just win. I was like, I mean, unless they can keep you from getting any battle tactics and get all theirs, like yeah, like that's kind of what it's gonna be. I'm like, so there was some feel bads, but I think like I personally feel, regardless of what my play group says, that like a lot of the feel bads were people just didn't read and understand the mission. Like I'm gonna pick on him a little bit. Nick didn't read the scenario at all. He thought it was the other one that lets you remove them. Like I
Well,
announced it before
folks
this is
skim.
what we're playing. Everybody read it. It's a weird one we literally never play.
To be fair, most humans have lower reading comprehension than you would like as like a
Well, he just
society.
didn't read it. It wasn't even
Yeah.
a Reddit and didn't comprehend
Okay.
it. He admitted in chat.
Yeah.
He just did not read it. He
Yes.
thought it was a different one, even though I said it wasn't.
Yeah. So I mean, no, I like that you had a. So without even realizing it, you've been talking about your first principles. Like you were very like I wanted people to open the book. I wanted my tournament to be like you've opened the book and you're playing Warhammer. You know, I call it, for lack
Especially
of a
for
better
my
term,
first event, right? 'Cause, like,
beginning, beginner Warhammer.
Yeah.
Like not as in skill level, but like this is how you start out. This is the organic
Yeah.
origin Warhammer, And
I don't like comping like at all, right?
No.
Like the idea of comping is something I can't stand, and I feel
See, that goes against one of my principles. People should get to play with their shit. They bought it, not you. Fuck off. I'm gonna play myself.
well, that might be a level of comping I'm fine with, and like in the regards of like the game is intended on whatever level you play it, especially General's Handbook, which is like all those scenarios are battle plans they're supposed to be in play, right? Like
part of the reason we
it is
see
fine of being a good player if you can play all of them with your list.
this is sports metaphor incoming. Sorry, everybody. This is why I like outdoor stadiums instead of indoor stadiums for football. Outdoor stadiums, I don't want to know that you can, in peak conditions, like always do the thing in an arena. I want to know that you can get in the mud. I want to know that you can fight through the snow. I want to know that when it's raining, you can maintain the ball. Like I like that. For me, and I'm not gonna do the real general shit because I don't accept real physics takes on my fantasy game either. So I'm not concerned with real generals any more than I'm concerned with real physics for dragons. Okay, like it's internal consistency. See, look at that. But I like to know that like you can play through adversity to sort of prove your mettle. And part of what we see when we as a community sort of collectively agree that like, well, we don't play with these battle plans. Now, I do agree with Nick. The no reserves one should just be jettisoned off the game forever. Like, don't play with those. But everything else should be, huh? I know you would because you're a monster.
Yeah,
Is what
Ravagers is my favorite. Like
roll.
Whole,
didn't
right?
tell people them ahead of time and then fucking rolled them. Look at this. Look at the absolute cojones here.
Hard mode, guys. Get good.
Yeah, get good. That's right. Get good, scrub. Yeah. No, but what's happening as we sort of collectively decide these are the best battle plans and these are the best battle plans is we also skew the like power lists because
right.
Now having to deal with these battle plans that your army sucks with and prove that you can win on them, which would have normally operated as like an equalizer to something like dragons, which has a different footprint from what you require for some battle plans. You've now basically given them a control state yeah, like I'm aware that in a controlled scientific lab you can do some of this stuff, but like, face it, folks, we play a random game with randomness.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying like go full ham and Wild West and embrace all the random all the time, but
Yeah, yeah. All that being said, that was in my pack. I stated they would be rolled the week before the event,
perfect.
and right, like, so
Yeah, no, setting expectations.
no one should have showed up thinking that like there was going to be like a pre-prescribed like these are like oh like he won't do the vice or whatever the one Nick hates is. I can never remember what it's actually called.
Mhm.
The no reserves one, right? Like because like I laid on the table like
Total
I'm
commitment. No, they changed all their names
like
now. But
so yeah
yeah, no, it's
yeah. Part of it is though like you said like like my way of thinking about the game or everything, but also like the biggest motivation for it honestly was like and then like the Adepticon drama and everything, right? Because that was 2 weeks before my event.
no, yeah, that had to be great
reaffirmed it.
going into that.
Like,
Like
I
the
was like,
nerves.
this is my first event. The best way for it to go well is if I play it like as by the book and right like
I like that.
there
No, I
there's
respect
no
it. I really do.
like right like there's no chance for people like oh well your meta is made up of like 80% Stormcast so you of course you pick these like or like any like
I mean,
nonsense
everyone.
right
That's the
like
thing is like people say
there was zero
nonsense all
favoritism
the time.
favoritism like I ran it like you said right like sit down
Open the book up.
release
Yep.
Age of Sigmar, you flip that book open it tells you how to play it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just
To avoid any sort of real critique. Like, knock on me for having the crappy scenario, like battle plans.
Oh, you're a monster, absolute monster.
I did it the way that you're supposed to.
No,
right?
absolute monster. No, I'm appalled by you right now. Like rolled them. Like I'm just, but I respect it. I can respect a monster. Like I like your conviction. It's like respect. Seriously, like I'm joking that you're a monster, but I'm not joking. Like
I am a little
respect.
bit. It's cool.
Little,
I know what I am.
A little bit, but no, I respect. No, I do respect that. I respect that you kind of had this is the pack. The fact that you even put in the pack, like I'm rolling these, I think is very important. I think that
I had a game plan. I didn't necessarily execute all of the game plan.
Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah, right. But I had a game plan, and a lot of the game plan was made available, and
yeah, and I mean that's the thing is like you've got to. I mean, and I think that's the real takeaway from Adepticon is just write a better pack. I think that's the and not Adepticon. I don't want to pick on Adepticon. I'm kind of tired of talking about Adepticon personally. I think the real lesson for everybody in the event scene and wanting to run
events, know how to write a pack.
Write a better pack and stand on the backs of giants. What are the great events that you like that inspired you? What are the ones that you wanted to go to when you were sitting at home, watching Twitter drama unfold or hanging out on the TGA forums? You're like, fuck, my army's not going to be paying any time.
That's what I did, right? Like I said, I've never been to any Age of Sigmar events on my own, but I've never heard a negative thing about any of the events Mike has run.
Yeah.
So like,
the
guy Godson, as far as being an organizer and everything, because like he like again message him at 2 a.m. The minute he's up, he's gonna respond, even though he knows I'm
he's good too.
I've never had to wait for an answer for him. He's done calls with me and stuff to I've sent him the pack I wrote went back and forth between me and him like a dozen times. And he was helping me format it the right way and stuff and make it look like what a pack not changing words right, but laying things out for me it was great.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
I'm very tech for future people will be aware of also when they're coming to events I might run into. I am a tech I'm a caveman. Hit the computer against my head. Might as well be right.
Yeah.
My lovely wife is very good with computers and Excel and things like that, and I lean on her for all of that.
I still don't know Excel well, to my chagrin. I've built computers since I was 14, and there's certain software out there. My brain is like, this is.
I place orders every week to Games Workshop, right?
Yeah.
I call her every other week to ask for a reminder on what the formula
Okay, that's
like to
bro.
change
Bro, talk to your
the
therapist about ADHD.
like, what was that thing again? And then finally, like this week, she's like,
Yeah.
just copy paste it and put it in like a Word document on your desk. I was like, well, yeah, I get you're right.
Yeah.
That's the smart thing to do. Is
Yeah.
take the thing you've given me and put it somewhere I can always get to it.
Yeah. No. No.
Yeah,
Genius.
I just want to call right in the middle of my work day.
Uh, yeah. The rational nihilist here. Nick's dropping the knowledge bomb. Have the location, date, address, and important deadlines at the top of the pack.
Yeah, and that was again like so. I took it. I pulled the group right. I was like, what are things? Not like my entire group. But I was like, what are things you want to see? And he told me that, and I did it right. Like there was a header that had like everything other than like hotels, right? Because even though he told me about it, I didn't think this like because again, I didn't expect like the only like confirmed out of town people I knew, like they were staying with him. So like the idea of like informing out of town people that surely aren't coming to my event of good hotels nearby.
If you build
Just
it, they will
yeah,
come. I'm sorry. No, folks want to play Warhammer. I mean,
yeah,
that's a lot of the animosity is because people wanted to play Warhammer and they couldn't for various
yeah.
reasons, so they had to get
Yeah, I
angsty.
mean the willingness of like Illinois is not far, right? But it's still like
Oh, I
it
love
blew
the
me
Indy drive.
away.
I personally
Like
like
it,
as someone who makes that drive for PTQs and
yeah,
GPs back in the day, Gen Con. Anytime there's an event in Indy from Wisconsin, I love that drive.
yeah.
There's that part where you hit those.
I enjoyed the drive to Adepticon way more than I thought I would.
Mm, yeah,
I was like,
there's.
this is gonna be the most boring couple hours in my life because I left at like 6 p.m.
Mm,
on Wednesday night, and like, but no, like it was like I put music on. Like eventually, like once my wife got her kid to bed, she called me. Like it was a very relaxed time, and I was like, oh, okay. So the
Somebody
part I
else
was
has made
really
the
dreading
drive to
wasn't
Indy.
that.
Hell is real. I love that drive. Yeah, make sure that pack the circus peanuts and Red Bull. See,
Oh
he went
yeah,
by that was I missed that one, but I heard the story immediately when he came back from the fucking with the circus peanuts incident. Like I don't know what I was doing that weekend, but maybe I was helping with
circus
it.
pants are disgusting.
So funny, so fucking funny. He didn't share the oyster story like he is contractually obligated to, so I'll make him share it next year. He's got an oyster story too, which isn't nothing beats the peanut story, but the oyster story had me in tears too, because it's how he tells it that's funny. It's not the story.
He's got some weird stories, and yeah, he tells them
It's just
in the best way.
yeah, no, it's the cadence, it's the like the right amount of hyperbole. You know, I
Yep.
lean way too much on. He's got the right amount at the right moment to make it funny. Yeah, no, So it sounds like you had a successful event. As far as like hardware, like did you keep it minimal too? Did you, you know, how'd you,
So
did
we
you get prize
had
support from Indy Storm? Did you have to?
yeah. So they one thing I really wanted to do because it's just philosophy we have at the store. We don't make money on any events we run. Like that's just not like our game space. We're blessed to have that game space. We're a very successful game store, and like
Humble
so like
brag.
it's not yeah right like hey right. But um like that space like we don't view it as losing money because we don't like even though we don't monetize it right. And so regardless of it like even our magic we've got a magic pre-release this weekend right. We're making like on our on our pre-release kits or whatever like we're making like a buck or two I think, but only by the nature of we want to charge a number that makes sense,
Yeah, you don't
not
want to
like
lose money on product because
33 and some
you're moving
change or whatever
product
right
or
like it's
whatever.
just
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
and like that's how we run like our drafts on Friday nights. We make zero money. We don't lose money either, but the way we prize out and stuff like that, we make zero money on our draft,
Hmm.
and we treat all of our events that way. Whether it be gift cards, which like that's kind of us making money, or whatever, right? Like whether it be prizes or gift cards or things like that, like all the money that's given to us for an event goes right back to the people that are in it. It's like I was not going to compromise that, like regardless of it not being my event for the store, right? It being an indie store thing. I was like, that's and like I work with those guys a lot with their events anyway, so they know the drill. And so that's the other advantage to me.
Can I just
Not
say
only
that's I fucking respect the hell out of that. Because for me, game stores were sanctuaries that kept me from
appreciate,
getting the
yeah,
shit beat
like
out of me. Like at home, I'd go to the game store, and if I had to pay to go like hang out in the back room play a
I
little bit
don't.
of Warhammer?
I don't.
You know, go ahead.
Especially like in today's day and age, like the pandemic did hit some a lot worse than others. It was a boon to us, honestly. Because we don't focus just on miniature games and Magic, right? Like, we sell fuck tons of board games, and so what did everybody
Board games.
basically have to get into?
Yeah, board games. Yeah.
Like we did a record-setting year last year, right? And the year before that was almost record-breaking. So like the 2 years of the pandemic, we fucking blew it
Crushed
up.
it. Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Love to hear that. And I love to hear you doing it and keeping the community focused. That's what makes it even better.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's what we care about, right? And like even our owner, like right, he's not really involved anymore in any way other than being the owner. But like that was always his point of it.
Yeah.
Like make enough money to pay the staff, pay for product and rent and all those things or whatever, and then like obviously get some money for himself. Like he is doing like
yeah, he's doing capitalism. It's fine.
It is not a purely profit focused store. We've got 3 locations. We had 4 at one point. The one in Lafayette just kind of just petered off and off and off more over the years. And so like and we've been there forever. Like the chain itself exists for over 40 years at this point.
Game stores are aggressive markets too. Like you get crushed in trying to open a game store.
We are a feature in Indy, right? Like and it's great.
You know you're allowed to advertise. You can say the store if you want.
The Game Preserve, 3 locations. Near the Fashion Mall Commons in Greenwood, well, Indy, but near north of Greenwood Mall, and then in the Bloomington Mall. Yeah. Come see us. Yeah. We're great.
Yeah, it's the Letterman effect. It's okay to show your stuff here on RantCast.
But the advantage
part of the gag
to being advantage of being management there and also being the person who not only knows Games Workshop but orders Games Workshop is like I hooked, like we gave away, like it was paid for obviously, right? But with like doing discounts and things like that where I could like $1,000 or so. Like so we gave away, I think I've got like, so where is my list of things I gave? I don't think I had, but we gave the INF Deepkin Fire Slayer box, right?
Nice.
I pulled one of those back. We gave that away. So, like, these are the raffle prizes. These aren't the podium stuff. This is just stuff that basically everyone who didn't place in the podium, I randomly, not like a random number generator, get a thing. And so like that, the Night Haunt Daughters of Cain box dropped that weekend. So I said, fuck it. And threw one of those in, right? 2 of the Slanesh and the LRL Christmas box. We did, I think, 4 start collectings from various armies, a couple blisters, some dice sets. I threw in some of my club dice because, like, the running gag is our indie dice are trash.
Oh, the bad luck, the horrible luck.
Like, except for me, I got them when I was playing my Cruel Boys, like at the start of 3 or like that, and like I'll fucking play slots all day long with that army and those dice. Like, roll 6s, win games was my mantra. Like, deal with it.
I love it.
And so I jokingly put some of those in, right? Like as part of the prize or whatever. A local guy we have, Dom, does Circle City Lasers. He donated some dry brush pallets he made, and then some of his these really cool like battle tracker things he's made. We threw in some paint, like a couple paint sets. And then, like, I had some extra of the battle plan, the cards they handed out at Advertise, right? I got to take some extras to give away as prizes. Like, nothing to be exciting about, but like so we just had a ton of stuff just to raffle. Like, almost everybody of the 29 people, I think between podium prizes and that, like, I had 27 things to give out, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I was so like,
at those 2 people that didn't get something, you should have just grabbed them a couple like F&M packs or something.
I just couldn't. One, there wasn't any more money.
I know.
And then, like, I just like I couldn't think of anything else, right? Like, the Adepticon things were like scraping the bottom of the barrel. But so, like, yeah, all that stuff, like, right, and like everybody loved it. It was like everybody was excited about it. Some people passed on the things they got. They're like, "No, I'm good. Roll somebody else." Right? Like, it was super cool, and I did that. I did that before I did the podium prizes. To like. Not right, like, because obviously once podium prizes, like, less excitement, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, then the podium prizes. So I did a best overall. I'm not going to remember the names of these prizes.
You don't need to out people's private information either.
The primary thing we did, and we're going to continue doing it with the Indy Storm events, and might like even theme it a little bit better. But we had a engraved dagger made, I had pictures up on Twitter and stuff, and Storm Champion, and it's got all the event information on it. And one of our local guys, Christian, the guy I was talking about, he does woodworking professionally, and so he made a desk plaque and a wall plaque.
I saw I saw you I saw you posing with him. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and so that was super awesome. And then we did the Indy Storm people. They do cups, like engraved cups, tumblers, right? And so all of the prizes had that, right? And so there was best general, best for each Grand Alliance, best painted, and then the best sport, right?
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
And we ended up actually hilariously, I like gave away another paint set because part of the best paint score, in addition to hitting the rubric, was the best opponent, like thing, right? Favorite opponent that was tied to who you played. But I had a favorite army vote that was purely for that. And I had a bunch of I had some staff obviously help me with it. One of the guys from Indy Storm that was there with me voted, and then just other friends that were in and out and stuff like that. A couple girlfriends of the guys who are starting to get into the game. And I just basically handed them pieces of paper. I was like, go around, look at all the armies, tell me one you think is cool. So they're like, oh, you mean best paint? I was like, no, I don't care. I just want to know whatever army when you look at it.
Yeah, that's what the favorite army is a great one. It's a good equalizer. Having best army or best painted and favorite are really good. Yeah, go ahead.
And well, everybody had cool looking armies. The two standouts, Dom, the Circle City Laser guy, he has a beautiful snow based white squig army that he's done lots of cool oil paintings, oil paints and stuff like that. It's masterclass stuff. But then Chris Grafton, who's a guy I met at Adepticon.
I like Chris. He's good people. He's really
posted
good people.
on Facebook his IDK army. And I sprinted through the hall when I saw it during the event to find him because it was a wheel time themed. And I'm a huge fucking wheel time nut. And it's I was talking to him about it, geeking out real hard, and I was like, oh man. And we introduced ourselves. He's like, oh, you're the Indy Storm guy. I was like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to that. I was like, oh my god, are you gonna bring this army? He's like, yeah, I can bring this army. And I was like,
yeah, I've played against his Wanderers and his Mixed Chaos.
Yeah, but him and Dom just overwhelmingly got all the votes.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where Chris Duncan, the gentleman who one of the owners of Indy Storm, we were looking at each other when we were telling stuff, we can't only give one of them something. And so Chris had more votes, and so Chris got us over. But then we gave Dom kind of, and so next year we thought we're going to have, whether they're categorized differently or just because we've got some great hobbyists.
Oh, the Midwest is I think this is one of the.
We're going to have more than just the one.
Yeah.
So we don't end up in that situation where of 29 people, that guy got 18 votes and that guy got 11 or what, right? They're both deserving of something at that point, right?
Yeah.
When you just two people sweep it, right? So, but yeah, I mean, those are the podium prizes, and everybody, everybody was stoked by it. The one thing Indy Storm donated, on their dime or wherever, one of their guys does lots of laser cutting and stuff, and they made double-sided objective tokens. I insisted on them being double-sided. I think as a box because one of the things that frustrates me the most about official ones, so one side just says Indy Storm with their little lightning bolt, and then the other side is just their swirl, which is their symbol. But what I love to see in objective tokens is being able to note who controls it without having to put something on it.
Oh, so you flip it depending on.
Cluttered,
I'm
right?
lightning bolt, your
swirl.
swirl.
Start of the game.
Yeah.
I'm the symbol, you're the words. Right?
Oh, I like that.
Especially when I'm actually actively.
I'm stealing that forever, by the way. That's.
Go for it.
Yeah, okay.
Game state is the monster in my head when I play games competitively that just won't ever shut up.
Oh yeah.
When game state, and it's because I played Magic and other card games.
Yep.
Stuff, right?
Yeah. Board control, game state. Yep.
When it gets led astray or messed up, or it is the most frustrating thing in the world because inevitably you get people who just want to walk stuff back, and I'm not against walking things back when you can.
That's where
when you've moved on. When in turn 1 something happened, and then you realize mid turn 2 that something shouldn't have happened. Not because you forgot, but literally turn my guys can't be shot. I'm sorry, we're you can't roll back.
Yeah,
there's too much new information.
Right. No, I say I nebulously say the game state can't have been significantly modified. and then I'll let you walk it back. Like if you wanted those things to move over there instead, and you're still in the movement, fine. Let's reset it back to where if we know where they started, which usually it's easy to backtrack. Fine, whatever. If you want to activate that thing instead of that thing first, and like maybe you were about well, actually, can I do? Sure. There are things like where buffs, if you forget your buffs, I'm really liberal with, where I'm like, would you have cast the buff? Yeah, just roll it quick. Like
yeah.
Because that's like that. If you're out of position to cast the buff because you made a decision last turn, that's But if you're like, would the Hag Queen have like gave everyone a sippy cup? Obviously, like fine. You just forgot to say it. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. Like I've got some of my friends have been very forgiving. I forget oracular visions sometimes on my sorcerers. That's one of the primary reasons I take the damn thing. Like, and they're generally always babysitting someone super close. It's never like I'm not supposed to forget that, right? It's like they've always been very generous about like sometimes even reminding me, hey, who are you using oracular on? Oh yeah. These guys.
Well, in Magic the Gathering, we call it mind tricking someone, where you tell them what they should use it on, and you hope that they do it, and you tell them the wrong decision.
Yeah, table talk. Like they did that in War Machine all the time. Like I would ask me questions like, "Oh, so like, do you want to charge that thing?" Like again, I was a shitty person.
You're mind tricking them. Oh, so you're charging that one, and they'll be like, "Yeah." And you're like, so we'd mind trick people, right? Like is like you'd force their hand, and it's weird. Because now learning to like ask an open question instead of a specific question, because
that's a discussion we have in like our local community a ton, right? Like well, I shouldn't have to like remind them about redeploy. Don't remind them about redeploy. It's just when you're done moving, ask them, I'm done moving. Like it's just say, this unit's done moving.
Is there anything you'd like to do?
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to go that far, right? Like just I think in a lot of cases, especially if people know the rules like they should, like making that declarative statement.
Yeah, so that they know they have an opportunity to do something, right? Instead of just
and maybe that's because I played so much Magic and stuff that like the idea of
passing priority.
I'm down, like right, like it's just ingrained in me. But
I think that there's some, I affectionately make fun of Magic the Gathering, but I don't think people realize I actually like it.
It's one of the games I miss the most.
I take my EDH decks to every Warhammer tournament I've been at, just on the off chance someone's like, "Oh, I heard you used to play Magic." I'm like, "Used to," and I just like slam down the fucking, like 3 cases or whatever. But no, I play it differently. But there's some communicable skills that you learn in all the competitions. Anything you do competitively will transfer over, even if it's just like learning your nerves. To this day, I like my hand still shakes when I have a fucking tape measure. It doesn't matter. There's nothing I can do to stop that. I am calm as fuck on the inside, but that just fucking tape measure will just bounce every time.
Due to the nature of all the anger stuff that I've talked to you about, right? Like I have like situations.
Social anxiety.
I'm good. I'm like, and that's a thing that I would again use to my advantage, especially if I have table talk. Be like, I'd try and put people on tilt. Like they're not gonna get me mad.
Yeah.
Like, or at least they're not gonna get me mad to work.
You're not gonna like the type of mad I get if you try to get me mad. Is quite frankly what it gets down to.
Like I would find whatever that like that little like if I'm micromanaging your movement, that's gonna be the thing that like.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh well, that's
the
jousting.
Anymore, but,
the jousting in MTG, like it's part of it is to try to tilt somebody. That's like part of the game.
When I played Magic competitively, like asking like oh why do you draw your card that way? Right, like
interesting. You put your lands in front of your You put your lands in front of your creatures. Weird. That's a choice.
It's mind games, jousting. It's just like anything that makes them think, oh, does this guy think I'm doing something?
Yeah.
Like,
like telling them which deck they net listed from, like, and who won with it. Like fucking cracking on them. I used to do one of those, like when Merfolk was huge, just being like, oh, Merfolk, yeah, like and just little digs and just this just snakish. Yeah, man, I don't. But it's part of it. It's just it's
Magic 100%.
If you don't do it, you get it. It gets done to you. And you just.
Yep.
And I remember we used to kind of make fun of like headphones guy, and I don't like making fun of headphones guy anymore because I realized that like sensory overload is a thing for people with autism or on the spectrum. and maybe they're on the spectrum and they get sensory overload or
Maybe you
social
can make fun
anxiety.
of them.
So maybe making fun of them's like a real dick move. Which is why I do like the way the code of conduct is written in Warhammer, because it seems to be aware of neurodivergence, which is
Yeah.
another barrier to.
I mean, say what we will about Games Workshop, multi-billion-dollar, publicly traded,
$3.65 billion corporation.
corporate,
Yeah.
like
$5
capitalist
billion if they
country,
liquidate
right?
some warehouses that aren't being used. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like they get a lot, and like there are a lot of people who blindly follow them, and there are a lot of people who blindly hate them. I don't think they get the credit they deserve for a lot of the things they do,
I,
because of
you just said
the
doo doo.
perceptions of doo. Yeah. I literally, as I was thinking about the
Yeah.
words I was using, was trying to find a way to not say it.
And I had to drop in some sophomore humor there. Continue. Sorry.
um, because I think people, because it's easier, right? It's easier to call them on like the shit that is
Well,
not
negativity
good.
bias is a real thing. It's evolved into us. It's really easy to see the negative as a species. We remember easily that thing gave me a stomach ache. Don't eat it. Then we
It
do like,
doesn't
oh,
matter, right? Like you said, it doesn't matter that Games Workshop, in a massively published thing about how they are going to run all of their events, has some very clear inclusivity, because they're charging $210 for a terrain box that has a model everybody's going to need.
yeah, yeah.
Right? It's like
You can
those things that have nothing to do with each other, right?
you
Like you can.
you can criticize the. I think that I'm most vocally about consumer exploitation and
Yep.
worker exploitation when it comes to Games
Yep.
Workshop. Those are the two things you'll always hear me criticize.
I
I
depress
don't.
me a little more towards worker, because the consumer exploitation does directly benefit me. It is my livelihood.
Secure the bag, dog. Secure the bag.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. I'm not judging you. Like the those are the two things I'll be most vocal about. There are some other like game design things that I'm pretty vocal about, but for the most part, like it's not in a. Some of the stuff people like still get surprised by, and I'm like, this is Games Workshop always does this. Why are you surprised by this? Like at some point you have like you're starting to talk like somebody who's in an abusive relationship. Are you in an abusive relationship with Games Workshop?
Well, it's like the whole rant on like the FOMO releases that they've done the last year and a half. Like they've like that's always been how they release things. Like
I don't know that the what's it called, the tenacity of an idea makes it worthy. but
Well-
but even though I was standing, but no, that you're starting to get into the consumer, and again, you've got your agenda, you got your store, you got to run. Like secure the bag, man. You've been charitable in many ways, and
I recognize that their FOMO practices are predatory and shitty, but like, it's the people
everyone does it.
yeah, one everyone does it, and it's also the people, like you said, who act surprised.
Yeah, and
Like,
that's the thing is like,
hello,
how can
I'm
you
Games Workshop. I take advantage of you not wanting to miss out. Are you new here?
Yeah.
Like-
Well, and that's the thing, and that's I think that's where there's a little dissonance is people need to recognize like they do it, they've always done it. Have you ever played a video game and had Day Zero DLC? Like everyone fucking does this shit.
Yeah.
Like
It doesn't make it okay. But
no, it doesn't make it okay whatsoever. But why are you surprised? Like, and that's where like there's a little bit of a disconnect there. But then also you it's okay to criticize it and be like, hey. So it's just that there's. Am I upset at how people do criticism because they mistake cynicism for criticism? Is that what I'm mad at?
oh, I mean, if you're not, I am 100%.
Is that what I'm upset? Is that people aren't more nuanced? Is it? I'm gonna need to do some soul searching on that because I think that's what I just. Huh. I don't know how I feel about that personally.
Like, so here's my hot take that'll get me lynched once this is on YouTube and
Let's
everyone can
hope
see it
not.
forever
Let's
and ever.
hope not. Yeah.
I hate Rick and Morty.
Oof.
I recognize that parts of it are funny, right?
Yeah.
But I hate Rick and Morty because it has given legions of people the excuse to assume they are being cynical and it's okay, and really they're just being dicks or over criticizing.
No, cynicism is shit. That's like cynicism just means negative.
Yeah.
Like congratulations, you've made
You're
obvious.
somehow,
No, you've
Rick
made
and Morty has somehow made people like
it's
I'm enlightened because I like the world
I call
sucks
it
and
like
I
I
know it.
see it, and I'm a dick. I had a president who that was their shtick, and quite frankly, I don't think
Right?
it's charming. Um,
Yeah.
like I call it like I see it too, but how do I call it like I see it and manage not to be a gigantic asshole about it all the time? Weird. I must just be special. Like, it's this.
Oh, yeah, my wife's right. It's called emotional intelligence.
Thank you. Yeah, or I've been through real shit in reality, so when people start
Yeah.
being dicks about nerd crap, I'm just like, all right. Like, I don't want to dismiss your sincere feelings for feeling that way because I have a podcast about games and shit, so clearly I care a lot about them. But you're gonna need to have a little bit better perspective on, is this the thing to be angry about? If I'm constantly angry about this thing, is there something else that I could do to make me
Yeah,
happy?
and that's a whole nother level too, right? It's not just that people are thinking cynicism is some sort of like
Moral,
killer or
morally
moral
great,
thing,
moral
but
great, plateau you've arrived at by being a cynic.
they they are cynical
You're
about
enlightened.
everything.
Yeah. Well,
And so then when it comes to actually getting mad about something that matters,
how do you
they either
differentiate?
aren't putting the right amount of energy into it or
Right.
they're not necessarily doing it
or
at all.
or or the people who are cynical assholes about everything all the time, when people have legitimate gripes about FOMO marketing or whatever the
Yeah.
real issue, low wages or whatever really needs to be talked about, it just gets drowned in with the rest of the cynicism.
Yep.
So now you've given
Nobody bitches about
essentially
everything.
you've given agency to the people who
Yeah.
don't want to hear you, a better excuse to not hear you. There's, oh, you're just negative about everything. Well, no, I'm only negative about the very specific things that need to be addressed, and the rest of it's all good. Or not all good, but yeah, it's just there's a balance here we're not hitting, and I understand part of it is exacerbated by the internet and the negative, the fact that the algorithms are based off of negative engagement. If
Yeah.
I Go ahead.
I pointed out to my local group in one of our chats that we have the Thondia box was what I think the example you because they were people were griping about it. I'm gonna buy it regardless
Mhm.
because I love the game. I will support it any chance I get. There's cool stuff in it, but I recognize that I am very privileged to be in a position where I can look at this company and this game that has some unfavorable practices and things like that. And it's kind of shitty for me to do it, but that's the reality of being privileged, right?
I mean,
You don't always wield it properly,
right.
but I'm very privileged to be able to go, yeah, okay, cool, I'll buy that.
Peace. Good night, Wolf. Yeah. I the one thing I kind of do my sort of dickish behavior is when people start complaining about stuff in Games Workshop. I'm like, you don't have a problem with Games Workshop. You have a problem with capitalism, and
Yep.
come join me over here on the left where it's awesome. And it just, well, it's like FOMO marketing and all.
Yeah.
All these exploitative behaviors. I'm like, that's just boilerplate capitalism. That's just, and I'm not saying you need to be you need to become a radical leftist, but if all the shit you're mad at is consistently this stuff and every business does it and you're mad at every business doing it, you need to run some diagnostics on yourself. You need to go
Maybe recognize that it's the businesses doing it because of a structure that's been built to benefit them,
yeah.
and maybe start pointing your anger at that.
Yeah, yeah, and you can be upset about you can be upset at fandoms for rewarding them for it. But here's the thing about fandoms: the multi-billion-dollar industry that has its core research built off of a trillion-dollar industry of ad and stuff like that. Do you really think that the literal psyops these companies engage in, you really had the power to be an individual and overcome by yourself? That you were somehow better than it? If so, have you ever pre-ordered anything? Kickstarted something? Literally go through, as you're about to throw this stone in this glass house you're living in.
Look at the movie industry, right?
Yeah.
All the people who are super vocal online about Marvel or Star Wars and how things are ruined, right?
Oh.
You're just being loud about it because guess what? The money points it doesn't matter if the Star Wars fandom is screaming bloody murder about
Oh, and
it.
they still went to it in record
money
numbers.
ignore the people who are complaining about it and still spending money, right? Let's just focus on the people who aren't complaining about it and spending money and the droves of people that are doing that because they do like the thing. These fandoms exist because they service the fans in some way. regardless if it's predatory or not, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, now we're getting into some like headier stuff. I don't
Yeah.
want to make people feel bad for their consuming, right? Like you're gonna.
You like what you want. I'm not going to judge you
Yeah.
for liking
World's
what you want or
hard.
not liking.
You gotta tap out sometimes and just refill your mental bandwidth. Enjoy something. Play something. What I'm really specifically talking about is if you are distinctly not enjoying this thing and you are constantly feeding into that
Engaging with
negativity
the thing.
feedback.
Yeah.
Again, you need to. I hear people in abusive relationships talk like this, and I'm like, get out of the relationship. And I know it's really easy to say that when you're not in it, but it starts to feel like some folks are okay with being abused, and like.
Yeah, and it's a little different, right? Because it's what's at stake, right?
Right, the stakes are nothing, right? It's a stupid minis game,
Like,
right? Not actually
or Games
physically.
Workshop,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I
it's a
hate Games
false
Workshop. They're
dichotomy.
like, the game sucks for years. Blah blah.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what do you like?
Yeah.
I get that there's some social aspects to it, right? Like, I would not want to walk away from Sigmar at this point, even if it pissed me
I
off.
have too
Because
many friends, yeah.
it's what I do now, right? It's
Yeah.
my thing.
Yeah.
So it would be hard to do. But ultimately, if I didn't like, it's what I did with War Machine, right? Like I, ate, slept, breathed everything War Machine for forever. And
It's
then
a very
3.0
callous thing
happened.
to say, to just get out, right? Like, if you don't like it, leave. I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah.
I'm trying
But
to
if
say
it's
run some.
continually doing this thing,
Yeah.
and it's not like people feel to recognize it's not going to change.
I
And
don't
so
know.
when the cost that like you're paying for walking away is just not doing that anymore, people aren't holding a gun to your head, and it's not like that impactful beyond
No,
probably a
I'm
social.
trying to find a way to nuance this because I really do think it's, like if you like the thing, you should try to kind of make it what you want it to be, But that's the
Yeah.
thing is like on a grassroots, on a ground level, the games, the communities, the tournaments you go to, you can do that.
Yeah.
Like that's why I like Warhammer. I almost don't give a fuck what Games Workshop does. Release my models,
Yep.
do it equitably, theoretically, do it timely, and make them look sick as fuck. And any shit I don't like that you do, I'm just gonna ignore it and go play with the homies.
Or say your piece about it and be done with it, right?
Yeah, or like, hey, this is garbage. Like, like I don't like what you did here, or this, I don't like this release, or I don't like this book, and then we fucking move on. Like, it's that easy. Yeah, just well, don't piss in my mouth and call it rain is really a big
yeah.
big part of my whole ethos in reality and in general. But no, there's a point where it becomes this cycle of, I mean, it's in 40K a lot more than AOS first and foremost.
100%.
Where I'm staring at these 40K discourses, and I'm like, do you even like the game anymore?
Yeah.
Like if it's just you hate everything about it. I'm like, that's where like I guess this is where being specific will help me rather than speaking in vagary. Like I see it very specifically in 40K. You know, and I got to a point where I didn't like who I was playing Magic the Gathering, which is why I quit playing.
Yeah, very similar to what I was talking about earlier with War Machine, right?
Like,
Looking back at it, like I don't like that person. I never want to be that person.
Yeah. I like Magic the Gathering, but I don't like what that scene was bringing out in me because I do have that competitiveness and I do have a chip on my shoulder and I do want to win. And when a game like Magic has only winning as relevant, when it has cash prizes that in order for me to afford my hobby, I have to be winning. Like I can't, because at a different stage in my life, I'm relatively secure now, with financially speaking. In a way, I'm still on the poverty bubble, but there we go, doggo, doggo gang. But yeah, but when you're a college kid, or whatever, and post college kid, like I if I don't win packs at this event that I can flip for cash, I just lost money getting a hotel room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I literally can't afford to play unless I win. And so it was.
Yeah, that's why I very rarely travel out of state to play Magic, right?
Yeah.
Because like, I'd look at it like, I mean, I wasn't a bad Magic player, but like,
I had to
breaking even was generally my best hope in a lot of cases.
You getting
it's like I'm not gonna go pay for a hotel to do that.
If I'm not getting
Well,
packs to flip, I'm not If I'm not getting packs to flip, where I win, I get my packs,
Yeah.
and then I walk over immediately to the Star City Games booth, crack him there in front of the dude, have him like go through and like hand me my fucking cash money on the spot,
Yep.
or try to swindle another person who's just cracked some packs and doesn't know the
Yep.
value of their cards,
Yeah,
and then take their cards over.
Yeah.
I don't.
L5R was a flexible game. That's what I did with that, right? Like I would go out of state to those events.
Yeah.
Because generally they were multiple day events too. And I liked, but like with L5R, I really could like make money on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I won. I would like I went to an event where the best person of each faction was supposed to get to design a character.
Mm.
I gave my choice to a different community for boxes of the next set. Right? They're like, if you let us have this choice, like we'll send you like 3 or 4 boxes of the new set. And as like a 14-year-old, I was like, fuck yeah, okay.
See,
Sweet. I don't have to save my allowance or
Oh.
pinch my lunch money for that.
Yeah, well, see,
Cool.
that's why I got good at video games, competitive gaming. And the so I'm just old enough to have been in the sort of like the last golden age of the arcades. I have money I've literally taken out the couch, or like a couple bucks from like lawnmower from mowing lawns around the neighborhood, and most of that goes to like other random stuff, that like, you know, didn't have a great family, so I had to compensate, had to help, um, and so if I wanted to go to the arcade and play video games all day, I had to be good at them. Um,
Yeah, you had to stretch that quarter, right?
right. And playing FGCs were always where like people were sitting there, and I noticed that if I beat that person, I got to stay on. And so so you take that mentality, and this is, oh my god, it's like all operant conditioned into me, isn't it? So by the time
it becomes more of a job.
Yeah,
Than
yeah,
easy.
and I don't want AOS to ever be in that category. That's the only problem I have with ITC. And I was it Domir busted my chops on it or something, or 8Ball busted my chops on it the other day in Discord. Someone was like, "You're always shitting on ITC," and I'm like, "I'm literally not. I have one very specific issue with ITC, which is their partnership with Games Workshop. It is that in that aspect alone that I am vocally against. It is the you get a cash money prize for doing well with ITC. Like Games Workshop says, hey, here's $800 to $1,200 if you win at our minis game, and I don't like that, because that is a first step down a long path I've already tread in other places, and I don't. Now,
right now, at the level at which they're doing it, like it's still very bad taste in mouth, because I agree with you, like, right? But like it's kind of scary and shitty to think about, right? But I can see where it can go. That would be way worse.
I've seen it
and
happen.
So like it is very much right now.
I don't want to be that guy. But
okay, like
yeah,
it's
maybe this is where I'm being the negative cynic right now, right? And I don't.
Like I said earlier, right? I try to give them the benefit of the doubt as often as I can about decisions they make, because I think
they're smarter than people realize.
They're smarter than people think, and then also, like, honestly, over the last couple of years, like I think they really have done a lot, like in spite of COVID, to the benefits of communities.
They've been on a positive trend, which is why they still have a lot of good faith with me. Like I'm not content creator who's made his brand as shitting on Games Workshop. I'd have a lot more followers if I did, quite frankly. Like,
well, I mean, we talked about a little bit in Rant Gnome a few weeks ago, right? Like hot take podcasts and things are always going to have more followers.
Yeah, like angry guy on the internet. Like I did that too. I'm good. I don't need to. I don't get me wrong. I've got a fury and I can rant with the best of them. Trust me. But it was, you know, when I was doing games journalism, I emulated what was popular at the time, which was at the time Angry Nintendo Nerd, rebranded as Angry Video Game Nerd, and like Yahtzee, you know, on Zero Punctuation. I emulated those behaviors, and I did angry video game reviews like every unremarkable angry white boy on the internet at the time. Like I did that, and that shit's never gone away. That's like in the DNA of the internet and content.
I mean, it's all what a lot of the sites I go talk to and stuff like that. That's all a lot of those sites are.
Just outrage merchants. They're just
we're gonna go piss on a thing and say how bad it is.
well, yeah. It's just being an outrage merchant. You know, like you are tapped into the commodity of controversy and constantly peddling outrage, and it is fatiguing. And when it is constantly being angry at everything all the time, when real things happen, like for instance, social issues, or what's going on in Florida right now with Disney, like when these real things fucking happen, it just gets drowned in with the usual outrage merchants. And so it's hard to rise over that noise that is constant because we're so fucking
the Disney stuff's a great example, right? Like there's legitimately some stuff going on that like
yeah
really matters, but like somehow in all that discourse, people are still finding time to bring up, well, Disney fucks up Star Wars too, like right, like
yeah it's
all
just,
these
and
things that, like have been yelled about for years now. It's like and have nothing to do with it.
yeah, now they're resetting their old takes. Well, I told you Disney's always shit. Like and that it happened with Adepticon too, like resetting old takes. Now we're having to have the fucking soft score debate again. Like, all right, like cool, let's do this again in 2 more years. Like, it's fatiguing. One of the things I love the most is the community, but then when like I have to have that moment where I'm like, do I really want to like engage this community right now? The part of me that is my favorite part of everything. I have to run my own diagnostics, right? Like I have to go inside and go, like, is this worth it? And that's what I ask of other people. That's what I do with myself. But yeah, where was I? I was going someplace with this. I promise. Outrage merchants, blah blah. Yeah, so I don't know. I did that stuff. I think the cynicism is. We need to stop taking the black pill. We need to get off the cynicism kick. Culturally abroad speaking, I know angry nerd is like a trope. It is a thing. It is real. I get it. I am one of them. But you can't be in that headspace all the time. It's not healthy for you or the stuff you like. Like video games are forever ruined for me. Like I can't. I've like I saw Jet Set Radio is getting a high end remake. I'm like, finally they're like all fucking fine. Yes, one of my absolute, like, we're talking. I don't do like top 10 lists. I only use them as hyperbole to stress how important. Like Jet Set Radio Future is one of my absolute top 10s.
Yeah.
We're talking like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Diablo 2, like the my absolute favorite games. Like the exclusive, the VIP seating favorite games is Jet Set.
You can't help but be stoked about it.
Yeah, can't like my fucking profile pic for the longest time was a fucking fan art version of Beat from Jet Grind Radio.
Final Fantasy VII was one for me, right? And thankfully I don't have a PlayStation or anything, right? But like Final Fantasy VII remake or remake, like right, like
yeah.
I hate what they did with it, right? The idea that it's multiple like installments, right? But like, but I want it because
yeah. So Jet Set Radio Future, and they started saying all the red flags from everything I hate about video games now. Online service, want to be like Fortnite, and like they're just going down the list. I'm like, and so now I'm at this point where I'm like, I'm either going to Thondia it and know that this is money spent, and like just literally throw $120 at this game that I already know I won't like, just because that part of me inside is like, maybe this time,
Yeah, definitely.
And you
gotta have hope on it, right?
Right. And have hope, but don't have expectations. Is another one of my mottos, right? And is $120 with hopefully give me a graffiti soul bust with like a sweet posable beat.
Yeah.
I will buy the collector's edition. At the very least, I will have that shit, and then I will throw the game like a fucking frisbee out the window because it's going to be trash. They're gonna make it.
I'll be right back.
Yep.
You keep talking.
I got this. They're gonna make it some arena shooter, like Squid Game. Not Squid Game. What is it called? With the painting, Splatoon. They're making like some fucking arena shooter, Splatoon, Fortnite garbage game, and all I want to do is grind sweet rails to fucking dope ass music, fight cops with graffiti, like, and make art. Oh, they're gonna take it all away from me. But I don't know. So that's like I said, video games are basically ruined for me in that respect. That cynicism in me, it's always overtuned. I unfortunately I was an angry video game nerd writer in on Kotaku and later on my own blog and stuff like that for years. So it's stuck in me. And maybe I've gotten little bits of my passion and joy for video games back over time, but it's not like it used to be. You know, back in the day when I'm like, oh man, I love video games so much, and I'm a writer. It makes so much sense to combine these two things, so I get paid to write about video games, and over time the cynicism just poisoned me so hard.
Yeah, I mean, I've got like my dream is to either publish an RPG setting, like homebrew setting, and like I also want to design a miniature game, right? And like a buddy of mine, we've worked off and on over the years on a miniature game. Every time we really start to get into it, though, we both just kind of step back because we realize, like, one, it's a fucking thankless endeavor,
Mhm.
and two, it's just even with Kickstarter being what it is, it's not necessarily like going to be a lasting thing, right? Like we could probably run a successful Kickstarter for a game and
Yeah, pocket the dough and
get a
run.
little
Yeah,
get a
take the
little
money
money
and
off
run.
of it
Yeah,
and everything like that
yeah.
to maintain it, right? Like,
Well, I mean, there's the thing is like the take I was getting towards with the being poisoned in video games is I'm starting to get a little bit of my passion back. It sticks around obviously for horror games. If anyone watches my show around October, where I go ham, I go hard in the paint. All I do is play like horror video games all month long. Um, it comes in little spurts with a couple game releases, Disco Elysium, Elden Ring, but like it's not where it used to be, where like I would grab the video game release schedule for the year, and like plot out exactly how much money from my budget I needed available to buy every video game release that year that I was
yeah,
interested in, and we're talking like Warhammer armies worth of video games every year, on a less than poverty wage, because you get when you really want something, you get good at borrowing and stealing to get it, and using whatever you have in your existing collection to flip for it. Like
yeah,
it's what you do, and I'm not there with video games anymore. I barely pay attention to releases anymore. It's not just because I'm into Warhammer and other stuff. Like it just I have this cycle, this wheel that rolls around of my interests, and the video game interest wheel never comes back to the top where I get into it. Comic books have, all the other stuff, RPGs do. Like all the other stuff rotates in video games because I've forever poisoned myself with that cynicism. And I'm
yeah.
just urging folks in Warhammer, if you're not there yet, don't go there. You won't like what happens. Like I'm not saying be toxically positive. I'm not saying don't criticize stuff. But there's a difference between criticism and cynicism. Criticism, critique, taking something,
Well, yeah,
seeing, yeah,
you can look at the new Army books as they've come out as a really good example. Like, I think 3.0 books have all, for the most part, been built really well. Like they aren't all super nuts, right? But they're all, I think, objectively good
yeah. The
books.
best one's Soulblight Gravelords.
I mean, honestly, it's the best written book.
I'm
I'm
just
not going to
like I
debate
look
that.
at the camera and just like pan over the the joke
But
being it was written into.
like so, like every time a new book drops, it is like there hasn't been a single one I think that people haven't just shit all over
And there's such a
without really digging into it and giving it a chance. And
and
then 3 or 4 weeks out, oh man, so like, did you guys know this did this? Yeah, if you read the book, you
yeah,
would
and
have known
like and people
that.
are winning tournaments with it, and
Yeah,
like like fucking Fire Slayers it happened with, and like and they're already starting to like fucking rip some victories in these like preliminary.
IDK is really good. Nurgle is a fantastic book. It's different than what Nurgle used to be, from my understanding,
Right, and
but I think
it's
it's a
okay to
great
feel
book.
alienated, and when thing you liked the way it used to be
Yeah,
is different. That's
if that was the complaint, I would mind it less. But
no, it's
it's
like
the
this
out of the
isn't
gate,
how
oh,
my
this
thing used to
book is
be.
garbage. It's like,
I've
how do you
got
know the book's garbage?
yeah, yeah, I've got 16,000 points of Nurgle, and I actually can't play the new Nurgle book. What the fuck's up with that? Valid criticism. You know, like that's like okay, like that's a valid
I'm
criticism.
terrified of a new Slaves to Darkness book,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I,
Oh, oh, and I'm on the
but
opposite side of the spectrum where it's like I could have fielded all right here, this middle shelf here. That's all my LON stuff for the most part.
yeah.
I've got like bigger models scattered throughout, but that's I could have just fielded my LON army again as Soulblight Gravelords, and
Yeah.
I'd have been not had to buy a model.
Well, yeah, the best case scenario, right, for Slaves to Darkness, I get in a position where I can field the armies I'm already playing. They're just a little better.
Yeah,
'Cause, like I like doing cultists, right?
yeah, but then
And
I still bought like 3,000 points of
outside of
brand new
Untamed
Soulblight
Beast and Iron
Gravelords. So.
Golems, don't bother with cultists. So like I'm really hoping the next book makes them worth it, but not in a way to where it makes how many of them I stupidly own.
Yeah, no, I still bought 3,000 points of brand new Soulblight Gravelords. See, because those are the old models, and I needed the new ones. You don't understand. Like, I needed. Okay, so I have 100 regular ass skeletons, but I need 100 of the new skeletons. You don't
I own 4 boxes of Spire Town.
consume. But
You know what should probably never see the AOS table, even with the ability to have Marks of Chaos now?
what's that?
Spire Towns. Certainly not 4 boxes of them. They are literally just worse marauders in every way.
Yeah, yeah. Just have a basic host. Yeah. No, no, I think like I said, like I still have a passion for Warhammer, which is why I'm still around it and stuff like that. I'm not telling people not to feel bad or feel negative. Please don't take that away from this 3-hour conversation thinking Mephisto says you can't have bad feel. No, fucking feel what you feel. You can't help that. You know, if you laugh at a crass joke, if you laughed at the doo-doo joke earlier, you couldn't help that. It's okay. Like it was a bad joke, but like
I knew I was going to laugh at it. That's why I tried
yeah,
to not say it.
yeah, like it just doo-doo. He said doo-doo.
I will real quick. Nick asked. He's gone now, but it's true. I want to get this story to the mass of the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
So literally the week that like Kragnos dropped, Mega Boss Mike, who was in the chat and is in the Discord and stuff, he got the dream scenario. He charged his Kragnos into my Archeon and rolled the double sixes. Right.
Mhm.
I took 10 wounds. He took 11, and then the rest were negated. It was like the best thing in the world, and it was all with those club dice.
Yeah,
That's what I think
that's fantastic.
prompted that. But yeah, so just
that's fantastic.
if I ever offer you, if I'm playing you at an event or anything, if I ever offer you our nice, indie club dice, take them.
Yeah, I will.
There's apparently a magic in them.
Yeah, no, I'll take them.
But
all right.
mine specifically.
All right, so I feel like we've talked a lot about a lot of stuff tonight, but what's Indy Storm going forward, or you going forward in this community tournament?
Like me going forward,
we'll put a nice little bow on RantCast 126 here with kind of going forward.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm thinking maybe towards the end of summer, depending on what like the Gen Con events end up looking like. Because I might be helping with those and things. I might be helping TO some of the opens and stuff too. So just depending on my schedule and stuff. But maybe at the end of the summer, I'm going to try and run another, at least one dayer at the shop. And then hopefully that bigger event in September with the Indy Storm guys for them and everything like that. But beyond that, I'm just going to continue. We've got a guy, Jordan Blythe, who does the scrums that I was talking about earlier. I'm going to continue supporting him in that. Even if I don't necessarily play them or not, like I think it's a very good way for, at the very least, people who normally don't play each other. Because we've gotten people from all sorts of sides of town that normally that are now actively playing a ton because they jumped into that, right?
Yeah.
And so that has obviously been a very good thing as well. But yeah, I mean, beyond those things, like I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing, encourage new people who come into the store to play, try and get people demos, encourage people to try. Like we've got a really good buddy of mine. He has bounced between a ton of armies, just trying to find like his niche, and like he actually does pretty well with Nurgle, but like he's super into Fire Slayers. So, like encouraging him to just like, especially since he's not as interested in chasing tournaments right now, like just find what you like. Because Nick actually has a philosophy that we kind of preach to people, like play an army for a year. But I only think you should do that if you want to go to events and be competitive with it, right? Like if you just like cool models and want to understand your army, like bounce around all you fucking want, right? But make sure they're things you actually enjoy. Yeah. So just I want to continue harboring all aspects of the community, right? In that way, like all the supportive ways and everything. Like we want to. I know when summer gets in gear and I can like have the doors propped open in the game room. Like I want a couple of guys to volunteer to like maybe do some airbrush classes, like so just like on a Sunday have like because I'll
Yeah.
keep the store open after hours a lot of times so I can play after I close the shop on Sundays and stuff. And it's like just like yeah, come in like we'll like because we have a lot of people who are genuinely interested in expanding their hobby and
Hmm.
so yeah, I want to do that. As far as Indie Storm, their goal, like obviously they're going to try and have some more events throughout the year, but their goal is to be back in a con space again next year. I forget they've got a date. And I think it's like between LVO and Adepticon. Like maybe it's like that first or
Used to be
second weekend of
February or something like
February.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but they're hoping to be in a true con space, and
That's
so like
that's that's a bold timing there.
yeah, it, yeah, I'm
Uh,
hoping it works out for them.
that's a bold because you're looking. I mean, you're looking at people who like essentially save up to be able to go to LVO or be able to go
Well,
to.
and they did it that first year though, right? And had that turnout they had. Like that's where they were. They landed right in between the two, and
Yeah, I
it was the
guess.
very end of January they did it, and like it somehow worked.
Yeah. I guess you're not wrong.
So they're gonna try it again, right? And so I'm 100% gonna run that event for them. Obviously, depending on numbers, I might need a little assistance and everything, which I'm sure I'll like Mike and
Yeah,
stuff
stand.
for.
Yeah, still like an artist and stand on the backs of giants. It's all right.
Yeah.
Use the help. This
Um,
community's here to help
yeah,
each other
so
up.
they're just gonna keep pushing forward. They were very happy with how that event went. I was very happy with how that event went. We really liked the idea. We tossed the idea around a little bit of every indie storm, the top prize being some sort of weapon. And then maybe once we get into where it is an annual con again, have it being like a growing scale. So like dagger, short sword, big sword, like right. And so like
Yeah.
if you can somehow manage to win, like every year you've got a full like
Yeah.
badass knightly armament or whatever, right? 'Cause, like that's the thing I'm a little spoiled about. L5R used to do like weapon tournaments all the time, like win a Tetsuba, win a katana, or so like
Oh,
that's a
win a
callback to some of my
katana.
young. Yeah, it was cool stuff. So yeah, they're. I think they've got the right head around things and want to eh, continue doing what they're doing. And like their goals align a lot with mine and like the store too in ways like they're very community driven. Like obviously they've got a lot of very competitive minded people behind the scenes wanting things to go well, and like they've got a goal to kind of be a
Like a
con that
hard nosed
people
convention that
know
people want to
about,
get. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like they like they want it to be like a small local thing to an extent, but they also want people to be talking about it, right? Especially after that first year they had.
Yeah.
And so like their end goal probably is to in the next decade be another Adepticon. And I
Ambitious.
think that's great,
I like it.
right? Like that's like
Yeah,
the more of those we have, the better.
I agree.
It's so
I agree.
yeah, I'm gonna do everything I can to
Yeah.
support
I
them in
mean,
that.
Age of Sigmar is growing dramatically. It's just
It's
off the
ridiculous.
profits. It's the highest growing of Games Workshop's
Yeah,
IPs right now,
like,
percentage wise, right? Like I mean,
yeah.
net profits at 40K is just
I mean, yeah, 40K is always
is
gonna blow
so
everything out
far
of the
out of
water.
it. But percentage wise of growth, AOS is just dramatically growing. That means that more players are playing it. Like more folks want to go to more tournaments.
Yeah,
I love tournaments. I think it's great. And again,
I'm looking forward to when I can start doing
I have
them.
the one specific issue with the ITC partnership with Games Workshop specifically. But if it's ITC events, fucking go to them. If it's a Midwest
I
event,
proved it
fucking
with
go to it. If
Midwest
it's
people. Don't be afraid of it. Like,
yeah, like it is fine. Like just go. Warhammer tournaments are some of the best times you will ever have. They're great. It doesn't.
meet some of the best
It
people
can
too.
even be a bit of a fucking clown fiesta, and it will still be a blast because it's about the people.
Everybody I actually met at Adepticon and hung out with, like,
Yeah.
coolest people in the world.
Yeah.
The Potastic Partners at War, right? Like, when they came to my event, Mark, I'm brain farting on his last name right now. He runs Dragonfall.
Ramchick.
Yeah, right. Like, one of the coolest dudes. I'll
Yeah,
probably ever
I
meet.
call him Warhammer Dad. Like he's like
Well, yeah, and
everybody.
it's like my like being a dad is a huge thing for me, and
It's
like
aspirational, isn't it?
I relate to other dads, and like he literally at a DEF CON because I was just talking about like
Yeah.
my wife and kids and stuff like that. Like he just was like,
Yeah.
you got it figured out, right? Like, and like it was just this like
Yeah.
super validating, like, oh, awesome, this dude who like I would never say to his face right now because I barely know him, but like seems to be like one of the best dads you could probably ever witness.
Yeah.
Just told me I've got my shit figured out.
No,
So that
he is
yeah,
legit as hell.
oh,
Like,
kid, right?
like he like there's a spell where we were all heading down to, I think it was fucking Tennessee for NashCon, which is, by the way, also part of the Midwest Fortress because we went down there and we have conquered it, and um and it was not all of us could like get our armies down there, or like we couldn't fly them out, like not everyone could like get them fly, you know, some folks were like flying out like, you know, just wire to wire barely with enough time to make it to the event and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, I'm driving down taking a van, like throw your display boards, throw your armies in there. And so just like basically he just drives every like just all of the armies of the Midwest down to fucking Tennessee.
We were gonna go to dinner one night.
Yeah.
And there was like 5 or 6 of us, and like Nick made the joke. He's like, "Oh, you got the van?" Like with like this giddy excitement. And I was like, "It's a fuck! Like what the fuck? It's a van. Why are you excited?" And then like Nick told me that, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that van is a pillar of the community.
Yeah. No, he's fantastic.
The van itself is...
Yeah. No, he is like legit, and it's like hashtag relationship goals for any parent and their kids in Warhammer. I think is you want to be like them, and
that's the idea of playing these games. Like whether that changed once you actually able to and everything like that, right? But like right now, he thinks it's the coolest thing in the world. It's one of the things where I was like, no, you're not gonna fucking want to like hang out with dad in 10 years and play these games. But I just saw an example.
There's my son's start collecting box right there.
I've got a buddy who bought it just to paint it, and
he's a dirty Seraphon player. He's betrayed his father, but they are kind of like dinosaur ghosts, right? So
true.
I'll allow it. Okay, I'll count them as undead enough. Okay. I mean, they're led by like a freaking demi-lich, right? Like a psychic demi-lich frog man. Yeah. So, yeah, so I won't disown my son for liking Seraphon. It's fucking dinosaurs. Like, of course, who the fuck doesn't love dinosaurs when they're a kid, right? Like, it's no, it's the people. I mean, it's most of your favorite stories of a tournament. As the negativity bias fades, it's human nature. As the bad experiences, like I said, I used to remember 3 distinct bad games I have had of Warhammer. Like one entire calendar year of tournaments. That first year I went, I had 3 games I could remember. And as I've piled on a couple more years of tournaments, I only remember 1. You know, like it's kind of remarkable. You know, and you're gonna remember the story about the van, not necessarily like an individual game. You know, like the high points, the great games, start to like stand out all the more. I mean, that's
well,
go ahead.
Indy Storm, like there is a level of like it is. I'm still riding that high and everything with how great it went, and like there's a level of like it's still kind of fresh in my head, but like even a couple weeks ago at this point, a lot of the smaller details about like the specifics in the games I was watching and stuff like that aren't there anymore.
Oh, yeah,
I remember how much of a fucking blast everybody was having, regardless of how their games were going. Like, my buddy Sam, who I was talking about earlier, who bounced around armies, he played one of the Patastics kids, and they had a legit draw in round 2, and they were laughing their asses off about it. They were saying it was the stupidest thing in the world and it shouldn't work, right? But they were
no, it's great.
Genuinely having a hilarious good time about the idea of having this draw, right?
Oh yeah, some of my best games were the ones I lost the weirdest. Like I'm just like, what the fuck? Like you remember the remarkable, and you could be remarkable good, remarkable bad, but I assure you, the more events you go to, the more remarkable things you'll find, the more remarkable people you'll meet. Warhammer is excellent. So you know, awesome. So this is normally where I do the final soapbox, but I feel like we've been pretty soapboxy tonight.
We have. Sorry, that's what like. I'll obviously be on here anytime you want me to, but I worry that it's always going to happen when I'm on here.
Yeah, it's there's a couple guests that the RantCasts get particularly ranty. So it's
one, I love to talk, but I also love to talk about things that matter.
Yeah, no, I think that there is a relationship between the games we play and our reality.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't like you don't cease to be who you are in the world to come play a game. Like I know that there are some people who are like, man, they're a completely different person when they play this game. It's well, what part of their personality is coming out, right?
Yeah.
You know, like what part of my personality is coming out when I'm playing MTG? It's my survival instinct.
Yeah.
I'm when I'm in my pure lizard brain mode, that abused kid from literal streets and projects in North Carolina, that's not my best version of me.
Well, so I mean, I'll get a little real. Like my therapist, hilarious, but like a lot of the stuff I'm going through, I can read some therapists. Like turns out I've got a lot of neglect
Mhm.
from my childhood. Like my parents were there and everything, right? But I was just very much second class citizen in my own family type thing,
Mhm.
with my own siblings and stuff. And like and when she said it, right, I couldn't refute it because like she says that's part of the reason why I'm like huge found family guy, right? Like that is a trope that I will live and die by.
Mhm.
But like she said, that's probably a lot of the reason why I am so in tune with being able to do these big community things and like to build a community because you're just expanding on that trope you already live by, right?
Yeah,
Like
the found family. Yeah.
I may not be as close to the Age of Sigmar community as I am with like my best friends who I consider my brothers and things like that, right? But like I am building a community and a family of people that I appreciate and like and want to see have fun. And I've just now got the ambitious goal of wanting to spread that everywhere, not just locally.
It's not that insane. You know, I made a charity event to spite one person who said my shows were too long, and
That's the best.
like,
And look where you're at, right? Like,
right, yeah, no, the never, you know, I think the doomer pill we mentioned earlier, the cynicism. It's so much easier to give into that than to like try to make something meaningful. And uh, they and them, they want you
well,
swallowing the black pill. They want you
and
to think you can't do anything. You
I
know.
used to be that guy. I think that's part of the reason why it bothers me so much because like I've pulled myself out of it now, and like I get it. I am infinitely more positive about a lot of things than a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are, and I give people the benefit of the doubt, and like,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to not be that way, right? But that's why I am that way now,
Yeah.
right? It's because I lived that
Yeah.
black pill, like everything
Yeah.
sucks life,
Yeah.
and it wasn't good,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Ulf, who I'm sure will be catching this later because he headed to bed too. He calls it like wholesome nihilism or hopeful nihilism is like he's a prescriber of, but
Yeah,
uh, like you know, like oh, it's all bullshit, and so like might as well have a laugh about it and like have a good time, right?
yeah,
Because the
and I
other
can be
version,
that, right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, the other version of like of hopeless nihilism doesn't serve you because yeah, but if
it
it's
just
all
eats it,
yeah, yeah, so
and so it
yep,
I get heated about it and defensive about it because like I want everybody to be happy, and I don't see how anybody can be that way and not be happy, like or like and be happy, right? Like
well, that's the thing
you
is
can't.
like I've got a buddy who is a legit optimist. You know, like he is like legit like you know best. He believes in all these like lofty, you know, pretty like idealistic stuff, and he talks to me, and we role reversal a little bit. He's like, well, you're the negative pessimist one. He's like, and I'm the optimist, but when I talk to you, you have a lot more hope for people than I do. And I'm like, I know it's really weird. Like why are we like this? And it's because like I have a little bit of that like if nothing matters then like fucking have a blast kind of mentality.
Yeah, yeah,
And he's like neurotic about everything that he's optimistic about all this stuff, but he's neurotic about all these little details of it that make him when we're having these like more in-depth conversations be the one on the negative side of everything and me the one on the positive side. And that's where actually the joke that I swear to God I'm an optimist came in because we were listening to Spanish love songs at the time, the band,
yeah,
not like you
yeah.
know like
Not actual Spanish love songs.
although based, you know, like
They're good.
I fucked with some what was his name John Cicada back in the day. All right, I had to fucking go deep for that reference. uh,
But yeah, so I mean, I guess like to wrap up, to sum up my almost 3 years or whatever, I feel like handful of years in Age of Sigmar and running a successful event, like I love the Age of Sigmar community, and
Base.
I want to keep giving to it, and
Yeah.
like hopefully everybody can get to that, like somewhere near that level of it, right?
Yeah.
Because like we're
Yeah.
like I fucking like I've spent however many hours we've been doing this, having a blast talking about anything and everything, right? Like
Yeah.
it's about Age of Sigmar, but like it hasn't been, right? Like
Yeah.
that's awesome,
Yeah.
right? Like if you can't go to an event and make all these connections and like go out to dinner when the events, like when the day's over, with people that maybe you met that day, and
Yeah.
just have a fucking good time,
Yeah. Well,
why do it?
yeah. Well, like that's the thing is like you'll what what Games Workshop or sorry not Games what this game gives you is the ability to meet people on the game level, and you meet
Yeah.
them there first,
And
and there's some safety rails there in that engagement. There's a decorum to how we play the game, how we interact. We've got our sports scores or our code of conducts that say this is how you play. And as you like slowly start to meet people that are like outside the game, if there's someone that like you think is interesting or you jive with or you've got a couple more things in common, then you open up that your guard a little bit more. And there are some people where you're like, okay, like cool, I know you to this layer, we'll stop there. I don't need to know anything more. I enjoy our games. We can grab dinner, and this is the person I'm not going to talk weirdo leftyism with. This is the person we're just going to talk about Warhammer, and I enjoy playing games with them, and I'm going to stop there. And then the people that you keep sort of. Sort of investing in that you find more and more interesting. Actually, you talk about John Anderson. John Anderson is actually one of my favorite people in this community. He and I are night and day. He is a hardcore centrist Christian conservative. Like,
John and I,
yeah,
unknowingly, I think maybe to him, and like this will out me, but I think him and I butt heads a lot more than he thinks we do.
yeah,
Uh, but I genuinely like him.
yeah,
I just don't agree with him. And even some game related stuff, right? Like he is that next step up on like how, like what he wants out of the game, that like I'm just not there yet and
yeah.
not interested.
Well,
And
he
he
poured.
legitimately is a worry for me sometimes when I am planning things, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
like, is he like, and I've told him as much, right? Is he going to be the guy that somehow makes this event hard for somebody?
See the
But honestly, he blew me away. And he does, and like I shouldn't, like I feel like John. I genuinely feel bad that I think this sometimes, because like he legitimately at locals, right, passes on playing all the time because he's got his competitive stuff or whatever, but he'll hang out and try and, while maybe not always tactfully, but still talk to people about how to improve their game some.
we all have
And then at
our
my event, he
quirks.
was chill.
Yeah. No,
Like,
he's
I had
a
this cloud over my head
yeah.
that like if anything goes wrong as far as like someone losing poorly, right, it might be tied to that, and it wasn't, and I genuinely feel bad that I felt that way.
Yeah. People will surprise you. You got to give them a chance, though. Like I mean, that's I genuinely like John Anderson a lot. He's a
Yeah,
really good dude. He it's funny because like he lets me question him, and like he lets me talk about what I think about stuff, and because there's an empathy and a mutual respect there, it's a really positive relationship. But I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't met him
yeah,
with Warhammer first,
yeah.
and
In our club Discord, he takes a very buddy cop helpfully type role with me. And so he has literally changed his name. It is John, because we originally, when I was playing Cruel Boys, he was joking about like pot grots, and it is John Basin Terrapin Anderson is his
yeah,
Discord name in our club Discord,
that's
because
fantastic.
like he has taken that like jokey role of being my little pot grot, right?
That's
Like, and
fantastic. Yeah,
it's hilarious.
yeah. No, he's good people. He really is, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I like that I've got a variance of folks in chat gang that don't hold my you know belief structures against me or whatever because they've taken the time to get to like enjoy my content and understand that there's some people you're never going to see eye to eye with, but like for the most part people, if you get that chance in Warhammer to meet people on that human level and then expand out from there to remember that
Yeah, I mean, and it's wild to think, right? At Adepticon, between the team event and the singles event, I mean, I genuinely interacted with everybody in
yeah
both those events on
yeah
like a not just necessarily in passing level. Like I chatted with people as I walked around and stuff. So out of like, if we just say, because people that did both events, let's just say 250 people.
Hmm.
There's legitimately in that room, like one person. I've never seen it, or like one person that like I will always be able to say like I could do without, and that is mind blowing to me
Mhm.
because even at the height of when I played War Machine and loved it, like I could go to an event like a Gen Con event with 100+ people and like run out of fingers and toes, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, and it's Age of Sigmar is just I don't know what it is about it compared to other games because it's like there's nothing different about the game itself at the end of the day, but yeah, there's just something about the Age of Sigmar community that is just
It's special. It's
yeah,
it's it's just special. Yeah, right. All right. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It has been a blast. I've enjoyed our conversation. I wish you and the folks with Indie Storm luck. I wish you especially luck in your personal endeavors, the shop, fostering a better community, helping the indie scene
appreciate it.
really sort of come into its own. I really am rooting for your club there. Uh, I don't know all of y'all, but all of y'all that I do know are just amongst some of my favorite people. Some of the most like when I think of
Some of them are goofuses, but they're all pretty good guys.
yeah. So like I like it's just like the Pants Mafia is like one of those clubs.
They're they're
Uh,
amazing.
when someone like comes and plays Warhammer, I'm like I just want them to run the gauntlet of like playing against the Pants Mafia. I feel that way about the Indie Club, where I'm just like run the gauntlet, like Nick True, and like end on John Anderson once you've had your humor like amped up a little bit
Yeah,
because he's gonna punch you in the
Mike,
mouth.
if you want to have like one of the most relaxed times ever,
Yeah. So
like
just and Nick knows he's one of my favorite humans just on the planet. Period. Um,
I've hilariously never played Nick.
yeah, I've never
Yeah,
played Nick either. I don't think.
because most of my games happen like after
Haywo
hours. Like
played
we
Nick.
like
Yeah.
pieces
Hey,
out before them.
Haywo played Nick, but I did spend like 16 hours in a car with Nick once, and so
Yeah,
my
that was my game with him,
my
right?
my bond is forever with that man. All right. Thank you so much for
Thanks for having
joining
me
me
on,
tonight.
man.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me tonight, TJ. Hey, chat gang, you are the show within the show. The reason I do this thing. Remember, drink your milk, pay your taxes, and this one's felt a lot harder lately. But be excellent to yourselves. Be excellent to each other. Take care, everybody. Good night.